Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the program. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show, here, live, with you, as always, every Tuesday. I'm the host for this week's edition of the show. My name is Jeff Gerstmann, here to walk you through the week that was in video games, both from a news perspective and for actually playing video games. We'll play some video games around here sometimes. Not today. That's crazy. But sometimes when the sun goes down, you get under the covers and you hide under the covers and you got a little, your little Game Boy down there and you're playing Alleyway. That's what you're doing. A little Alleyway. Here we are. It's I guess it's effectively been a year since we started this program. Something resembling a 1-year anniversary for the show here. I just want to thank everyone up front here for making the show a success. It was always a little nerve-wracking to be going out on your own with family mouths to feed and all this other stuff, all of that. So yeah, it's been a wild time, but I like to think we're all better off for it. So yeah, thanks again for everyone. If you want to if you want to jump on board this runaway freight train on a one-way trip to Toronto, you can go over to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. If that's if you can't spell it, dopeassvideogames.com will also get you there. And you can sign up and get bonus shows. You get an ad-free version of this program. The new episode of Game Boys to Men went up last night. That's interesting. We're kind of back on track, man. It was those 2 episodes we did about the magazine that Glenn and I worked at really smacked a dent into that program. It was weird. I don't know, like revisiting a lot of that stuff, but now we're kind of on the other side of that and getting into some territory that is weirder in a lot of ways. We're talking primarily about early 1995, the winter CES that happened in 1995. It is the last CES before E3 started, which is kind of apropos for this time of year, and for this is kind of in a lot of ways the first year with truly no E3. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, kind of as I prepare to go see some video games here later this week. Some unreleased stuff, and of course, we'll have some of these live streams coming up, and Thursday will be Keely's kind of introductory show here. He's got Alan Wake 2, he's got Mortal Kombat 1, and other stuff. I don't know. Foam Stars, probably. What's the over/under on a Foam Stars showing up in that program? Seems like the kind of game that would, for like a minute there, like as like we've now word from our sponsor. It's just the 3-minute Foam Stars trailer. Is that such a shitty thing to say? But yeah, I don't know. Foam Stars had the vibe of the like free to play game that was a clearly sponsored spot in a Jeff Keighley stream. If that makes any sense. But so we'll be doing that. I've got some interview time booked while I'm down there, so we'll get some interviews here and there. I'll get my hands on some games. I've got to dust off my mobile capture gear, which I didn't realize that Elgato discontinued the model of gear, the model of capture box I'm using. It's actually very handy for mobile capture, but I guess it is not so great as a pass-through device, and maybe that's why they maybe that's why they kind of moved away from it. I'm not really sure. Some light movements in the capture card space lately, Computex just happened, and with it there have been a handful of, I don't know, some new announcements out of Avermedia in terms of a new line of capture cards. Like, they're touting it as like it's an HDMI 2.1 capture card, which is, you know, kind of what the current consoles use, and it, you know, it is a higher tier spec for like frame rate and resolution and all of those variable refresh rates, all of that sort of stuff. Unfortunately, most of that is they're only letting you pass it through. You can't actually be able to use these. You won't be able to use these cards to capture, let's say, 4K 120 frames per second, which is what a PlayStation 5, what the current consoles can do. You can pass that through and it will spit out the other side so you can still see it, which is convenient if you don't want to like move cables around and do all this other stuff, but you won't be able to actually capture it. Now, this is obviously, you know, Twitch can't, I don't know what frame rate, how high of a frame rate Twitch can handle. I think YouTube tops out at 60 these days. So obviously there'd be a lot of changes to video hosting and streaming needed to really take advantage of any of the HDR, all of that sort of stuff, right? So it's not just the capture boxes that are the weak link in the chain, it's that the entire chain is not prepared to move forward to that. But yeah, it's unfortunate. So I am compounding things even further by having a splitter box that I'm using in the middle of that actually doesn't pass through 120 hertz or any of that stuff properly. When I turn on Street Fighter 6 on PlayStation 5, has a input, like a latency reduction mode in it, and when you turn it on, it's like this will be a real benefit if you're running at 120 hertz. And it's like the box I have hooked up will sort of do it, but it'll lose sync every so often. So the screen just goes black for a second here and there. And you're like, that's not ideal. So with these cards, if I really wanted to use them properly, I would be back in the world of like unplugging cables and plugging cables back in anytime I wanted to capture anything or really do anything. And I don't want to do that. So, you know, hopefully the weird HDMI splitter box company that makes these insane things and sells them on Amazon with random brands emblazoned on the top of them will have some new gear at some point in the future as well. I don't know. That'd be nice. It's a mess. All that stuff is still a mess. But anyway, yeah, I'm all set to record some audio. Got this new Tascam. What is this? Portacapture X6. Gonna get out there and do some hot field recordings and release my album. It's going to be a banger. You know, that's how people describe field recordings, I think, right? It's a banger. Yeah, so I gotta find a backpack. I gotta find a backpack. I know which backpack I want to find. It's a smaller one. I need to fit the gear in there so I can take it down there and have it with me. But no, it'll be good. It was really great last year to go to Summer Games Fest in person and see some folks and catch up, you know, and a year later, I haven't really gone too many places. You know, I haven't been that many places to go, honestly. There've been a handful of events here and there, but it's still, you know, kind of slow going for the event scene, generally speaking. So it'll be nice to get out and see some games. There's some stuff I'm hoping will be there that I don't know for sure. Like whether am I going to this appointment to see a playable game, or am I going to sit through a pre-brief, or you know, there's a bit of both mixed in there, but the short version of it is I'll be able to capture some footage of these things, and so we'll have videos of, you know, me playing some games, and you know, I'll talk about them, and we'll learn about them and whatever else. And then with the live stream stuff, generally speaking, I need to check some scheduling stuff for, I know they just added a Capcom event, and I'm not sure that I can do that one, but I would very much like to. So yeah, I have to figure out that schedule. But, we'll be here tomorrow with kind of a regular old Wednesday stream, and then Thursday we'll be streaming over Jeff Keighley's event. And then I'll go see some games for a couple of days, and then we'll be back on Sunday to stream over the Microsoft stuff and the Starfield stuff. And then Monday is Ubisoft. And then now I guess Capcom. So I have to figure out if I can fit that into the schedule and everything else. It's, it's like a lot of moving pieces with the kids are doing this, my wife's doing this, and I'm going to fill in here and change a diaper here and hold this kid like this and go, you need to eat. Why don't you eat? How come you never eat, kid? Why don't you actually allow food to go in your mouth and eat it? What is wrong with, like important stuff? So yeah. And that should be pretty much it. Question in the chat here from Bad Joke UI is Judges Week dead? So in terms of there being a week of going and seeing games ahead of the time, yes, that did not happen. That has not happened in conjunction with this. I think if this thing got bigger and bigger, that maybe that would make sense, but right now it's small enough that like everyone is seeing the stuff at the same time. There's really no need for a pre-show week right now. If you wanted to do some judging and voting and give out awards or whatever, you could do that within the confines of things as they exist right now. And I think that that's kind of fine. If the show continues to grow and whatever else, then yeah, you probably get to a point where you're like, oh, maybe we need a little bit more in terms of pre-time or whatever else. But yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know what to wear. We were joking online about jean shorts, and I don't know if I'm ready to be back out in the world with jean shorts. That seems like a bold choice. But we'll see. I guess I'll bring my laptop. I wonder if it's been a really down time for laptops these last few years. Maybe not, because everyone had to work from home, and a lot of people just like bought a laptop because they're suckers and they don't like to play the hottest video games or whatever, so they only just need a laptop or something. But like my laptop I threw it in this closet 3 years ago. I brought it out once when the wall in this room was getting fixed and I needed to do some work in another room. I got the laptop for that. But yeah, I guess I don't really know. I don't know. That's when I get back out on the road, when the kids get a little older and things kind of ideally kind of continue on this track of being safer and more normal and blah blah blah, that I probably will need to buy a new laptop, because I think this one is about 9 years old. So I know they just announced new MacBook Airs like yesterday. I would consider getting another one of those. The one that I have, that's what I have. It's been a very nice lightweight computer. It's nice to have a Mac in the mix just as a change of pace, because I'm not looking for a laptop that's a gaming device. I just don't need it. And yeah, so I would definitely consider getting another MacBook Air. That's probably exactly what I would do. In fact, I don't want to, like, I know that people get into their big gaming laptops and stuff, but those things are so huge, and why would you lug that thing around? I just I need to bust something out and do some typing or do some audio editing. And actually, it's really audio editing is the sort of thing that keeps me, I think, on a real laptop over like an iPad with a keyboard or what. That doesn't seem like a real thing. I like computers to be real things. We'll get into that, I guess, a little bit more later. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll get back. We'll talk about some Slayers X, Halls of Torment, catch up on the exploits of Street Fighter 6 and Diablo 4 and all that. And we'll get into this freaking Apple headset, I swear. We'll be back in a sec. Wrong. Did you know that traditional bed sheets get filthy? That's right. They can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat. And that can lead to acne, allergies, stuffy noses. And, it's gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning, eco-friendly bedding, such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters, that prevent 99% of bacteria and require 3 times less laundry. That's right. Let's get into it here. How do they do it? Silver-infused fabrics. These fabrics were originally inspired by NASA, and Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, so you get better sleep every night. And they're self-cleaning. That silver in there can help prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresher 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. You get a stink on your sheets, and it happens. It happens. But it takes way longer to happen with Miracle Made sheets. They're self-cleaning. Keeps that gunk out of there way longer. But none of this would matter if these sheets were, scratchy and rough and felt terrible on the skin. You're in luck. Miracle Made sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and they feel as nice, if not nicer, than bed sheets used by some 5-star hotels. It's designed for your skin. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, make you break out, make you just all gunky. Sleep clean with Miracle. You want in? Of course you do. Go to trymiracle.com/Jeff to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use the promo code Jeff at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Man. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/Jeff and use the code Jeff to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Jeff to treat yourself. And thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring the episode. Slayers X is a video game set in the same universe as Hypno Space Outlaw. And it's the Slayer. That's not the full name of Slayers X. It's the Slayers X Terminal Aftermath Vengeance of the Slayer. I want to like this game a lot more than I do. It is meant to be a new old shooter, but it is kind of designed in the Hypnospace universe by Zane, who's a character in that game. If you remember, who is extremely edgy. Is like basically the idea is like, oh, I thought I didn't finish it, but oh wait, here it is, and it's kind of like designed to kind of be like a lost game that you found all of these years later or whatever. And it's a like this is the hard thing about doing like funny games. Or like, isn't it funny that this game is old? Or isn't it funny that this lost game or whatever is like Zane is not capable of making a great video game, and so it's filled with a bunch of janky shit. And at first you're like, that's really funny that how busted this is, or how how this is, how these visuals look, or how this style is done, or the quality of the dialogue, and haha. But man. I don't know that I got out of the first level before I was just like, yeah, I don't know that I can do this. because that's such a hard thing to nail, you know, like the idea of how do you keep that thing funny for hours, you know, for an hour, or even if let's say it's a really short thing, but it's, you know, the universe of Hypnospace is so hilarious, and there's so many great period appropriate bits in there, but it's in the service of the game continually moving and showing you new things. Hypnospace Outlaws is an incredible story, like told very, very well. You know, the interface and the things you do in that thing are just fascinating as you uncover the layers of what Hypnospace Outlaw really is. It's really amazing. And so, like, as a spin-off of that, like, it kind of earns a lot of points right away, right? You're like, okay, but also you kind of know what you're going in for. But as an action game that is kind of serving you more action game, level to level, the video game part of it really wears out its welcome really quickly for me. I don't know, maybe people would have a little bit more patience or tolerance for that sort of stuff, but like I don't really want to play you know, I don't really want to play a middling fake old first person shooter, you know, or I guess, like, if I'm going to do that, it needs to be nonstop hilarious. There needs to kind of constantly be a hook there, continually keeping me like meaningfully engaged with the world that the game is set in and everything else, right? And so it's just kind of not doing that. And I don't know that you could necessarily expect it to do that, because that's such a hard thing to do. As well as, like, if you happen to like old shooters, or, you know, or new games that are kind of trying to evoke the classic shooter vibe, there are so many games out that have done that better and have just been better video games. So there's really not a lot of room for a kind of mid-tier, you know, fake classic first-person shooter in this day and age. You know, you kind of need more. And I don't know that the comedy aspect of it, the joke, I don't know that the joke works for as long as that game is, I guess, is what I would say. I'll mess with it some more. Maybe we'll stream some of it tomorrow so I can kind of show you some of it. But yeah, Slayer's X, Terminal Aftermath, Vengeance of the Slayer. It's just on Steam as Slayer's X. It's not, you don't have to remember the entire name. It's, yeah, I wish it was better, but I don't know how you do that. Like I said, I think that's a really, really hard thing to pull off. Especially because the kind of the modern retro shooter is such a, I would say, probably overpopulated genre right now. Like, there have been so many different. We were just playing. I did. This is not the H-Rot Hero. I don't know. I don't remember the exact pronunciation of it, but, like, you know, that game being kind of a fake Quake and pulling it off really well and feeling pretty good along the way. You know, I guess the Warhammer game Bolt Gun sort of kind of falls into that category to a certain extent. Though it doesn't, I don't know. Bolt Gun is not nearly as grimy as some of these other games are. Like, Bolt Gun in a lot of ways feels more like a modern game. Like, visually, like the filters feels fake. Whereas a lot of these other games feel a little more genuine in their grimy oldness. Which is, I guess that's a way to go too. I'd say Proteus is kind of in the same boat there, where Proteus is attempting to evoke classic shooters, but Proteus feels more like a newer and more modern experience across the board, like whether it's visually and whatever else. But like, Like people in chat are like recommending other shooters in this vein. And yeah, I've played Ultra Kill. I don't fucking like most of these games. Like they're fine. They don't grab me at all. They're so like I could just go play Quake again. Like most of these games are so fucking boring to me. Like I think Ultra Kill is lame. I did not get any excitement out of that thing at all. Some of the other ones are a little more, I don't know, nuanced or something like that. But yeah, man, I don't know. Like that stuff is just, it's fucking whatever, man. Like there are so many of those, and so many actually classic shooters as well that, yeah, I don't know. Severed Steel. So is Severed Steel the one where you have the chainsaw legs, or is that Ultra Kill? Is that? Ugh. Yeah. Turbo Overkill. Yeah. I mean, the fact that there are so fucking many of them, like they're just like, yeah. Strafe was cool. I mean, in some ways, that felt like one of the first ones. The other thing I've been playing is also kind of a fake old game in its own weird way. Halls of Torment. This was a very well-timed release right around the time of Diablo IV, where they have turned some kind of the Vampire Survivors, the ass game, the auto shooting survival genre that has also been quite clogged lately. Halls of Torment is a, let's say, sort of Diablo-esque one of those. It's not a full ass game. It is ass optional. You can turn the auto aiming and the auto firing on and off if you so choose. But I've been playing it in ass mode. I've been playing it in auto fire and auto aim mode, and that's been a good way to play it. And so you are just being swarmed by skeletons, and you are getting additional weapons and everything else. It seems like a game that needs a lot of updates to add new weapons and everything else, but it is kind of attempting to evoke the Diablo style dungeon crawl along the way, which I think works well for, like, just visually. I think that works pretty well for that whole thing. You should check out Halls of Torment. It plays reasonably well with a controller. It's another good Steam Deck game. I feel like a lot of the games kind of in this genre and adjacent genres where they're like, hey, whether it's like a full-on dual joystick shooter or a full-on auto shooter, I think that all of those games work reasonably well to amazingly well on a Steam Deck. And Halls of Torment is no exception to that. That's been a really good, really fun one. And then other than that, hey, you know what's another good Steam Deck game, it turns out? You know what's another fantastic Steam Deck game? Diablo IV runs surprisingly well on a Steam Deck with like I turned it up to Ultra and turned on FSR2, and its frame rate looks good, looks very nice. Some of the text is maybe a little bit small, depending on how your eyesight is doing these days. But Diablo 4, if you jump through the hoops to install the Battle.net client onto the Steam Deck, which is not that hard to do. I ran into a situation where I went through the whole process, got Diablo 4 installed, and then it somehow deleted itself. Somehow Diablo and the Battle.net client deleted itself. I don't know exactly what happened there. So I had to re-download the whole thing and start all over again. And then it stuck the second time. But yeah, you can make some adjustments. Some folks in chat are saying, like, you can turn the text size up. I did. It's not that much bigger. But yeah, it's surprisingly, other than some of that small text, the on-screen action is very readable. You can obviously turn on enemy highlights to give them big glowing colors if you want them to kind of jump out on that screen a little bit more. And it is fantastic. It seems like, I don't know, I feel like the Proton development There was talk back when the Diablo open beta was around that they were like, oh, we're going to do what we can to make sure that it runs well. And it runs fucking great. Like, it defaulted to low after I installed it. I must have just like read the system specs and went like, nah. But I turned it up all the way. I did not install the high res textures. That's an optional install when you download the game. And so it's only like 40 gigs on top of only. Yeah, that's where we're at. It's only 40 gigs as opposed to 80 when you install the high res textures. So I guess consider that. And yeah, I finally, I'd been meaning to do it. I wanted to do it before the game came out and just didn't have time to sit down and go through like, okay, let's get into desktop mode. We'll download the Battle.net client. We'll add it to the Steam library so that it runs through Proton, and then do that to install this. And then we got to add this shortcut to do this. And it's actually like a pretty straightforward process once you get it down. It's the same process I use to install the Epic client onto my Steam Deck. It's, pretty much the same idea, really. And I have Ubisoft. I have the Ubisoft client installed on my Steam Deck because at one point Trackmania was not on Steam, and I wanted to play Trackmania, so I had to jump through those hoops to make that work. And now I guess I don't really need that anymore, but it's there. It's there in case. It's there just in case. Steam Deck, still good. Steam Deck is still impressive. I feel like, there's not nearly as much discussion about the Steam Deck. I know kind of get kicked back up a little bit when Asus announced their little handheld PC thing. That there's been a little bit more conversation around that stuff. But I am still really impressed when a game runs well on that thing. Like a modern game, and you're like, wait, I can turn this all the way up? Huh. That's pretty crazy. And it really all works surprisingly when it works. And when it doesn't work, sometimes it's fun to tinker around with it and go like, can I make this work? No? Okay. Sometimes that stuff is a little fun too. Street Fighter 6 runs pretty well on a Steam Deck. You're playing World Tour mode, you're running around, and like you'll see some frame hits here and there, or at least I did. But you can do it. You can play Street Fighter on that thing like pretty well. It also, I guess, spending more time with the Steam Deck again lately and trying to play a fighting game on it and some of these other games, it is I think my new least favorite thing about the Steam Deck are now the buttons, especially the face buttons. But I think that the L1, R1 kind of front bumper buttons are not awesome either. And while we're at it, I think those analog sticks, or the analog triggers could be a little bit better. I think the analog sticks on it are actually quite good. But the buttons on the face buttons are like a little too close together, and some of them, like, they're clacky and a little loud, which matters to me because I play it in a room with a sleeping child. But also, just the feel of the buttons, the face buttons, sometimes can be just a little crummy. And so I would hope that that's something that, when it does come time for them to think about what's next for the Steam Deck, I would love to see the controls revisited just a little bit, just a touch. It's the layout is fine. I think the mouse trackpads are good. I think you could always, like, if they're going to do another one of these, they should have an option for just having like Hall effect sticks in it out of the gate. I think that'd be good. I know some people have replaced their sticks with those. I don't think I'm comfortable, especially because I think there is some soldering involved. I'm not comfortable opening up my Steam Deck and, servicing it or replacing parts or whatever else. That's kind of, I would break it. I know I would immediately break it and be like, well, that's that. So yeah. But yeah, I think that they're, like with that device, like the more time I spend with it, and most of the time recently, most of my time with the Steam Deck has been playing Mario's Super Picross for the SNES, which, is not an action game. So it's not, really putting the controllers through its paces as much. So, I kind of forgot that maybe the buttons on that thing were not super awesome until I went back and started trying to play fucking Street Fighter on it. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of that lately. So I'm so close to done comparatively with Mario's Super Picross. I don't have too many. Let's look real quick. Not too many retro achievements left to get in that game. I think I have earned dang near all of them. Oh man, hang on. I gotta log in to retro achievements so that I can see my profile page, and then I'll tell you how close I am. I have been playing, because Retro Arch I have it set up to keep time on how long you've been playing an individual game, and I think I've put fucking 45 hours into this thing, which is nuts. But that's been like my nighttime game, is like playing fucking Picross for the SNES. So I'm on the Ultra Puzzles, and I'm currently working my way through the Wario Ultra Puzzles, and then I think there looks like there's some EX puzzles, and then apparently there's Wario EX mode after that. So I'm really closing in on the end of that game. And so I'm very I'm excited to be done with it. For as much as I enjoy some Picross, there's a part of me that's just like, I want to get the rest of these retro achievements and be done playing this game. But I am having a good time with it. It's a quality game. I think I prefer the Game Boy Picross games that Nintendo made better than this one. I couldn't quite tell you why. But I don't know. That's just me. Why don't we get into, Street Fighter 6. We'll talk a little bit about it. It's amazing. It's a fantastic game. I'm continue to have a great time with it. I played an hour or so of it last night. Just got in and did some casual matches because I wasn't feeling. It had been a few days since I had played, and so I kind of felt like I don't want to jump back into ranked and wreck my silver rating. So I just played some casual matches with folks, and it was nice. Like, it's a game where. And great games do this, right? I mean, it's a game where I feel good when I lose, and feel like I'm learning, and feel like I am, or maybe learning isn't the word. There are a lot of cases where I look at it and go, "Oh, this is exactly what I did wrong. This is these are the mistakes I'm making. Like, I'm watching this player adjust to my dumb shit and then eating me up, and then having to go like, okay, what's my answer for the stuff that they're doing? What do I have to do now that this person is fucking destroying me? Like, what do I do next?" So it's like, that kind of cat and mouse of like, okay, what else do I have? Like, how can I change up the way I'm playing to kind of throw them off, to kind of open them up to, whatever. Like, can I just throw them over and over again and laugh maniacally? Maybe, but not with everybody. Again, I'm getting better at, poking more safely. I fought a Zangief last night that I thought was just going to destroy me, and I ended up pulling it out and winning, and that felt great. And yeah, just across the board, playing it, online has been a ton of fun. I need to kind of grind through the rest of World Tour mode because I feel like I'm close to the end of the story, but then you start encountering characters that are like level 60 and 70, and you're just like, wait, I'm level 46. Like, and you're giving me this quest to go fight a guy that's like level 70 or something. Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? But I'm pretty close to the end of story mode, I think, in terms of like, if you go into the gallery and look at how many cutscenes are left, I do not have very many left. And so I'm curious to see the actual ending of that thing. But, and I need to level up my character more so I can have more moves at my disposal, and probably redo my skill tree to make sure I'm building the character the right way and whatever else. But yeah, the World Tour mode's been fun. I just need to kind of get back in there and finish it off. But yeah, it's great. It's such a great game. It has been fantastic to watch these first handful of days. I mean, the game officially came out on Friday, and you know, seemed to launch relatively smoothly and all of that stuff. Diablo seems to be doing okay as well. You know, that technically is out today, or I guess last night, in terms of the full version of the game, for people who didn't pay way too much for the expensive version for early access and everything else. The cosmetic stuff, you know, because the Diablo launched its shop, and it made me realize I have like less than zero interest in the concept of Diablo cosmetics. Like there's nothing. I don't even want to transmog my gear because I want to see what I'm wearing. I want it to feel real. I feel like I want to look like the gear I'm wearing, and I want that look to change every time I find new gear and all of that other stuff. And so the idea of like, pay this money so that you have a helmet with fucking big horns or, you know, whatever other shit, just flies in the face of why I play a loot-based game. You know, and transmog stuff, I'm not always against it. I think, you know, like I'm unlocking the transmogs. I'm trashing the gear to at least unlock that stuff, for whatever reason, but I'm never using it. And I think if I were to use it, I would use it to like be like, oh, I don't want to wear a helmet. I want to see my lady's pretty hair, you know, or whatever it is. But I just, the idea of a loot game, this was one of my big problems with Borderlands. This is, I think, one of the great deficiencies of the Borderlands franchise, is that they have you pick skins and you do not see your gear on your player. And part of that is, you know, and they built the game for that because they're like, hey, you have a shield. You don't have armor, you just have a shield. And so you can look however you want because it's just shields. And I think that's a fucking cop-out. I think that's some sucker-ass shit. And I think they're cowards. I think the developers of Borderlands are cowards, goddammit, for not going in that direction. For not giving me what you want out of a loot game. Is like, look at this thing. You know, the guns only go so far, right? You want your equivalent of sick fucking pauldrons. You want to go, look at these sick fucking pauldrons. Do you know what I had to do to fucking get these? Oh, spend $8? No. I had to fucking play this goddamn video game way too much to get these goddamn pauldrons. And so the idea of just like, I'm going to go buy a new look in Diablo, like that's so like, that's a gigantic waste of time. And I know that like people fucking love cosmetics, right? And like people go ape shit for that in some of these loot games and live games and whatever else. Obviously there's a certain type of player that loves that shit, but I want to look like the gear that I'm using. I want to look at myself and go, oh yeah, that's that armor I just found. Ah, look at that. That's the, oh, those are the pants I just found these pants. They're giving me +2 to butt fucking. What am I even saying? That's a stat in Borderlands 4. They're bringing it back around. Borderlands 4 is going to be the funny one. You'll see. You'll all see. But no, I want to look at the things and go, that's my stuff. And so the very idea of like, yes, we're going to sell you. Now you look like a demon man. Like, oh, good. I look like a hell dude. In Diablo, a game full of hell dudes. I don't know. It seems like a gigantic waste of time. I like, this is not a new stance or whatever, but like looking at the Diablo shop was a real like, what kind of fucking rube spends any money in this fucking, on this shit? Yuck. And they'll do a battle pass and it'll have more cosmetics or whatever else that come out of that. And it's like, yuck. Who fucking wants any of this shit? Fortnite, I feel like games that aren't loot games, like I'm not saying like, oh God, don't fucking sell skins. Because sometimes you're like, I have bought skins. I said to myself, Call of Duty Vanguard is not a very good game. It is perhaps the worst of the modern Call of Duties. Even worse than Black Ops Cold War, though it's close. And it's not a game I'm especially interested in. And then that game said, yeah, but do you want to play as Snoop Doggy Dogg in our World War II first-person shooter? And I said, yes, I do. Yes, I absolutely do. I want to run around as Snoop Dogg. I want other people. Skins are not for yourself. They're for other people. To show other people, I'm Snoop Dogg. And also it comes with enough voice lines and enough, third-person animations and post-game and whatever else that you do get. Even though it's a first-person game, you do still kind of get something out of it. And I happily paid them their money for Snoop Dogg. Despite thinking that the game is straight up booty. Not a good game. In the pantheon of Call of Duty, Vanguard. Not one of their better ones. And yeah, so I don't know. I think that there's always a case to be made for, like skins, Fortnite and whatever else, when they're just like, hey man, do you want to play as Optimus Prime? Every time I get closer to like, maybe I do want to reinstall Fortnite again, and maybe I do want to be Optimus Prime. And then I did not do it for Doom Man. That's his official name now. We just changed it. It's Doom Man. Or whatever else, and then I just kind of, I reinstalled Fortnite not that long ago and played 3 or 4 matches of it. And I was like, this is whatever. I still don't like the way that game shoots. I just don't. I don't know that I ever will, because if they were going to make a change, it's quite popular as it is. So I don't know that they're going to go in and make a bunch of big changes to it now. Speaking of Fortnite, I played a game. I wasn't going to talk about it, but since we're kind of on the subject here, I installed a game that's on Steam called Farlight 84. And it is a mobile game. And the build that they have uploaded to Steam sure has a lot of tap here to continue. And it is the most broken. Like the controls I was trying to play it with a mouse and keyboard at first, but the mouse wasn't working, so I couldn't aim. And so I grabbed the controller, but on a controller, it was things like the reload button also was an upward dash, and the change weapon button was also a sideways dash. And I'm sure that maybe, I don't know what got crossed up, if some input mapping got broken along the way when I installed the game or something, but there's a lot of stuff you could go in and rebind. The mouse was not one of them. So I ended up playing one match of that with the most broken controls in the world. It is the most shameless Apex ripoff I have ever seen. Not that there have been a ton of those, so I guess any Apex ripoff is going to be pretty near the top of that list. But oh my god, like I assume it is a maybe a little more popular on mobile, or someone sat down and said like, wait a minute, they're canceling, they're shutting down Apex on mobile. I got an idea, and then they crank this thing out. It has the same type of character selection with the little bar that moves across the screen to give you time to collect your characters. It is the same, like you're the jump master and you're, falling, guiding your team down. It's 4-player squads instead of 3, so it's totally different. And because it was built for mobile, Farlight 84 seems to really be missing, at least on PC. On mobile, I'm sure it makes total sense. Good controls for interacting with the things at your feet, inventory management, whatever else, like all of that sort of stuff was borderline broken as well. I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to shut it down and run it without a controller plugged in to see if the mouse it's like, because clearly something was fucking going on with it to where the mouse would not work to aim, and then the right stick on the controller was like the most untuned thing in the world, so it was like impossible to aim. I still won. I still won the match because I was in there with bots, and so I was still able to just like stand in front of an enemy and go and line up my shots and take aim and stuff. But yeah, Farlight 84 is like a bootleg Apex Legends in the worst way. And they've got all these hero character designs and stuff. Like the lady I play is like, I'm a pizza delivery lady, or whatever it was. And so they're trying to design characters with flair and panache. And I don't know. The screenshots of it and stuff looked a little bit like a cross somewhere in the middle of between Apex and Fortnite, but I did not expect it to just be like a really shameless fucking Apex Legends clone. It's I don't know. It's a sloppy mess. So if you're interested in sloppy messes, that's free to download on Steam. I don't know that I would recommend it, but also maybe give it a look. I don't think it's good. I don't think it plays well, whatever. I had a completely broken experience with it, so I think it plays like actual shit. But if you want to see this thing, it's fascinating. Like you look at it, obviously you can't put a patent on gameplay style, like whatever. If that was going to be the case, all of the Pac-Man style games that existed in the 80s would have been shut down then, and the industry would be a worse place for it. But this game just looks like it looks almost illegal in a way. You're just like, Jesus, come on, people, what are we doing? It's kind of wild. So in that highly limited sliver there in the middle, I might say like, hey, you should give this thing a look. It's fucking weird. But it's not good. Don't mistake it for good. Let's talk about the news. Apple is trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. Apple, makers of decided like quite good monitors, is out there saying, what if you didn't have monitors? What if there was no monitor? What if the monitors were in your mind? They unveiled their VR headset. And I was recording Game Boys to Men when their conference was happening, so I didn't see it live, and I kind of went back and looked at it. They unveiled a headset called the Vision Pro. A lot of this was known. The price point, a lot of the different aspects of this were already kind of floating around out there for months and months. Everyone knew it was going to be extremely expensive. It is $3,500. And they are selling it as a spatial computer. That is how they're framing it. They're not framing it as like, hey man, you want to play Beat Saber? They're framing it as it's a spatial computer. And so I don't know that I would have to go back and look, but I don't know that they ever referred to it as a virtual reality thing at all. They would talk about AR, they would talk about mixed reality, because it's, it's got cameras on the front of it, like everything else does. It is not like a see-through set of goggles. Despite all the pictures of people's eyes on the front of it, apparently that's just another screen, and they're projecting your eyes onto the front of it, which is a fucking hellscape situation that I'm not. It's like, what the and when you are engaged and can't see them, it will be like a miasma kind of cloudy thing in front of it, so people walking by will see you and know that you can't see them or whatever it is. The bulk of, and so you start to wonder, okay, you're making a $3,500 VR headset. It had better be damn fucking good. It sounds like tracking wise and whatever else, like it sounds like that aspect of it is very well done. They gave people some hands-on demos after the presentation yesterday. That people came away from those saying like this is probably the best VR headset. Which for $3,500, it had goddamn well better be. But the use cases that they are presenting for like, here's this thing we're making and why. Feels crazy. Feels like crazy. Like I cannot believe that for all the years, 7 years or something, that they have spent working on a VR headset, and they finally get one. They announce it and prepare to bring it to market. And the best they can do hey, what does this thing do? Hey, what am I going to do with? Hey, what am I? So your $3,500 thing, what am I going to do with it? They're like, you can have screens everywhere. You want to watch a movie? What if you watched it on a big fake screen? What if you did that? What if you had a keyboard that was floating in the air in front of you and you were typing and what if you could send messages with a spatial computer? Also, the battery lasts 2 hours. But what if you could... And so all of their use cases were around like basically bringing up flat 2D displays inside of your world. And also, it is, since it does have cameras on the front, it is meant to be projecting the real world into your headset, so that you are like sitting at a desk and instead of me having 3 monitors here, what if I had no monitors here? And then I could just have an infinite screen that I look at, or whatever, right? Okay, like the idea of a personal screen that you only see because it's part of a goggles situation or something, like I think that's like mildly interesting once it gets good enough. I'm like, oh, that would be a neat thing to do once. This pitch that they came out with, this pitch of like, look at this productivity thing. I'm reading my emails, but you can't see it because it's all in front of my eyes. And I'm sitting here at a desk like this. And you're like, what's that asshole doing? And you're like, I'm typing my email. This was the pitch for Magic Leap. Remember the fucking lunatic, the Magic fucking Leap guy? When they're like, we're making our AR headset, and Weta built a thing for it, and also it's not going to be this model, but the next one, we've got to get all these monitors out of here. Like their whole thing was like, we've all these fucking computers. We've got to get these stupid monitors off this fucking desk. Put this on, and then the monitors are here. Fuck all this. That's the monitors are not that big of a fucking deal, man. This is not an actual problem. This is not something... In fact, it creates new problems. If you're like, well, now I watch all my television in my headset. The Super Bowl is on. Let's have everybody come over and watch the big game. Yeah, cool, man. Hey, make sure you bring your headsets because I don't have a fucking TV anymore. Oh, you just dropped by? I'm watching this show. Check it out. Oh, you didn't. Oh, well, I didn't buy a second. Well, I guess I need to have a second one for guests. I guess I need to have 2 or 3 of them sitting by in case someone drops by and I happen to be Hey, man, do you want to watch Fast 9? It's got John Cena in it. Here, put this on. Like, it's just not a fucking thing. Like, no one's going to fucking do that. The flat screens we have are nice and getting better all the time. Like, and they've come so far down in price over the years. They're not like cheap. They're not like $0 or whatever, but Jesus Christ. Like, these are not problems we need to solve. And so the idea that they got up in front of people and everyone sitting there knows Apple's been working on this thing for like 7 fucking years. Apple's going to be the last hand on the bat when it comes to VR headsets, and you know they're going to bring the heat. And they get out there and they fucking say, yeah, dog, we got a whole new OS. You can fucking send emails in mixed reality. And that's the whole pitch? Is what if you could position 2D screens in the world around you? That's the whole pitch? The thing that Magic Leap did and tried to pitch years ago, and like they failed miserably for a variety of reasons that, you know, don't necessarily have to do with that specific pitch, but like that's the thing you're gonna go like, yeah, we think this is gonna be the future of something. I'm like, no, you fucking don't. Like all the reporting, you know, there's been plenty of reports about inside of Apple and how there's been a number of people going like, this thing is fucking fucked. Like this is a disaster of a device. I don't know who this is for. Like this is, you know, like that. I am on that side of it. I don't know who this is for. I don't know why, you know, like if you're going to make a high-end VR headset, fine. If you're going to make a high-end, mixed reality headset, because as we all know, the eventual goal with all of this shit is you will have an AR headset that you can black out for VR. And that sounds like this is what they're doing, but it's big and has a cord that tethers down to a battery pack that you can kind of maybe clip to your waist. I don't know. Exactly like the Magic Leap. That also had a belt pack thing that you could clip, and it, like the belt pack would get weirdly hot, and you're like, this is on my belt, and it's clipped, it's pressing up against my skin in a way that is increasingly uncomfortable. The Magic Leap, I have one around here somewhere. The Magic Leap was a device everyone wanted to try once, and no one wanted to try twice. Do I think that Apple will have a better time getting a variety of software on their headset compared to Magic Leap? Sure. Yes. That will be less of a problem for them in whatever way. But it's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. And, you know, like, I don't, again, you know, Magic Leap, when they shipped that thing, they're like, we're going to sell these at AT&T stores for thousands of dollars, and we're calling it Developer Edition or whatever because we want people to buy them and then make shit. Like, yes, that makes a certain amount of sense, I guess. I would think you would give them away to the developers that you most want to make shit and not make them go to an AT&T store where, like, some guy's like, what? You want a what? Oh, do we have? I guess we do have those here. Weird. I've never sold one. Here you go. This just doesn't seem like a place that, like Apple shouldn't be in a spot where they're trying to build a market from near zero. And I think you look at, you know, when they started making this, if they really did start 7 years ago on a project like this, then, you know, 7 years ago, people had much different thoughts about VR and where it was heading and where it might go. But I think over that period of time, I think we've just seen that people just don't really want this shit. It's not to say that people aren't buying the PlayStation VR 2 here and there. It sounds like, you know, it actually did better than maybe originally expected or whatever. Or that some of the early reporting indicated that maybe it sold better than that. But What is it for? What is it really for? And why are we doing this? Those are my questions. Like the price, whatever. The price is what it is. You know, this shit is still expensive. Like the technology. Like if you really want crazy high end tech and cameras and if you really want to go to that next level, then you're gonna pay the price. Whether it was the Pimax or some of these other different high end headsets that have existed beyond the Vive and the Index and whatever else, but like the idea of Apple, a company who's gotten into the business of like selling fucking millions of phones, and it's like a very mainstream thing. They made a watch mainstream all over again, and all of this other shit, right? This just feels like a research project. This feels like something that they shouldn't be saying on a stage. This seems like something where they're like, hey, it's $3,500 because we're only courting enterprise and developers. But that's not really, even if that is the pitch, that isn't really how they're framing it. And I just, it feels like we're missing large parts of the story here. Or rather, if this really is the thing, and this really is what they intend you for you to do with it, is to pretend you have a computer in front of you. That's super dumb. That's super dumb. If they're putting this out and like the kind of unspoken thing eventually becomes like, well, yeah, this is for lunatics, and yeah, eventually there's a mainstream version of this that doesn't cost this much money, and we're like, hey, if we don't have this thing out there, no one's going to build apps for it, and no one's going to do this, and it just they just feel like they're in a weird chicken and egg problem. And for $3,500, I would want a powerful computer, and I bet that this is not going to like if all of the computing is packed into this thing, and it has to do all of this camera shit and high-end 4K resolution lenses, whatever else. What is the actual computing power? What am I getting in terms of like game performance? Even if I have to play those games on a flat 2D screen for whatever reason. Like what am I really going to do with it? It's like an M2 Max and then like their reality chip or something, right? So like is that what it is? Is that it's got an M2 in there, right? Which the Apple chips sounds like they've been surprisingly, or not surprisingly, but they've been very good. Yeah, I don't know. Like the Video Games Chronicle has their wrap up of it. There's like a throwaway line in here like, users will be able to play over 100 Apple Arcade games with Vision Pro, which will also support game controllers like the PlayStation 5 DualSense. You're like, okay. For $3,500, I don't want to play fucking the games that came out on Apple fucking Arcade. Like, oh, it'll play Jetpack Joyride? Fucking sick. Will it play it all around me? Maybe, maybe some developers will make big weird AR experiences. I will say, like, when the AR stuff can be kind of fucking mind-blowing. When I got a HoloLens demo, I don't know, a zillion years ago now, whatever it was, they had a demo of Minecraft running that you could plop onto a table. And they showed this, I think, at one of their press conferences eventually, like the next year or whatever it was. But it was this idea of like, hey, you can put a Minecraft world onto a table and you can reach out and zoom in on it and zoom out, and you can walk your character around and, like walk around the table and see what you're building. And it was fucking crazy. You look at it, you're like, this is like kind of fucking amazing. The Weta game that came out for the Magic Leap, you're like, oh, there's like a hole in the wall. There's a monster coming out of a hole in the wall and I got to shoot it. And you're like, that's all right. But basically it was like a fancy version of the fucking AR like Face Raiders game that came pre-installed on the 3DS. But it was something that was bolted to your face instead of something that you held out in front of you. That worked. I don't know. Like that didn't really blow me away the way the Minecraft stuff did. And And so I think that the issue with this isn't necessarily that like, oh, there's no way to make AR interesting. Like, clearly there are ways to do that. But for them to get up in front of people and for their pretty much entire pitch to be like, you can put flat 2D surfaces in your environment that you can use to watch movies on. Like, sorry, oh, did you want to watch Heat? Sorry, oh, you watching Blood In, Blood Out over there? You're going to have to take a break because the movie's longer than the battery life. Sorry. Maybe plug it in if you're going to be sitting down watching a movie. I don't know. So I just like the use case for this thing just feels broken to me right now. And you know, it's a tough situation for them, I guess, because if you don't make the thing, then developers can't make things for it. And, you know, if you, and vice versa, right? So at some point you just got to put a fucking thing out. Like the first iPhone didn't have an app store. And so it was pointless. Like I remember in the office when the first iPhone came out, people ran out and got them. And I was like, that thing doesn't have a keyboard on it. I like my fucking T-Mobile Sidekick because it's got a keyboard on it and it has AOL Instant Messenger. Two things I need to have. And so the first gen iPhone that didn't really have a lot of that stuff just seemed fucking whack. You're like, no, this is no. But I did, you know, when the iPhone 3G came out, I finally gave up my keyboard. I really missed it. I really missed my T-Mobile Sidekick for a good long time after getting that phone. But when they added an app store and suddenly you could have a bunch of weird shit on it, then it made a ton of sense. And so developers can make or break this thing to a certain extent, right? If they come up with a bunch of weird shit. That, unfortunately, is the part where I look at it and go like, yeah, but also look at the VR market for more affordable headsets. They haven't been able to like really come up with great ways to make the existing VR market make sense. And those headsets are way cheaper and, you know, way more convenient, you know, untethered, better battery life in some cases, or, you know, whatever you have. Like some of those headsets have benefits over Apple's device. And that market still doesn't make any sense. That market feels like it's like broken. That market feels like, oh, no one's investing in this stuff except for companies that are forced to because they bought in big, like Facebook. And even they laid off people, you know, even they laid off people from some of the teams making VR games and stuff relatively recently, right? So they can't even sustain it. You know, they went and announced their new headset, trying to, you know, kind of get out there ahead of Apple. But like, I don't know. Like it's so that runs into, that's the big problem, you know? Like, what am I going to actually do with this thing? Because if you're telling me I have to pay $3,500 for this thing and it's going to be the best fucking way to play Beat Saber, like, fuck off. Leave me alone. Go home. Think harder on what you want this thing to do. If it's like, you can send emails real good. Do you want to send text messages to people? Sure, I do that every day. I don't need to do that with a fucking mixed reality headset. That's more of like a side convenience of like, oh, if you're wearing the headset to do real fucking fun, cool shit, your text messages show up in case there's an emergency. You know, your wife can send you a text that says, hey, by the way, the house is on fire. You're like, oh, fuck. I've got to take this thing off. Yeah, I don't know. Everything about the presentation, everything about like, here's what we think people, you know, here's what we think you'll do with this thing, just feels so out of touch, just feels so completely like this is not a problem. Like, no one is clamoring for this. I'm sure it's very nice. I'm sure it's fucking cool. I would like to fuck around with one. But this feels like the opposite of like adding value to these experiences. This just feels like what? Who the fuck is this fucking for? Who the fuck is this for? And maybe it's enterprise. And, you know, if you get to a point where you're like, hey, man, you're wearing this while you're working on an airplane and it's showing you where to put the gears that you took this part apart and now you need to put it back together after you greased it. This headset's going to show you where the pieces go. Like, yeah, totally. Yeah. Like, those are great use cases for enterprise, and, you know, maybe there's some medical need. But, like, if all this stuff comes out and just disappears behind, like, this enterprise wall and is never heard from again by any real humans, why bother? You know, or why bother showing it off in this context? Just put it out and be like, yeah, I don't know, it'll be really good for people who have to perform surgeries and fix airplanes, and that's about it. So I don't know, man. It feels complete, like it feels completely out of touch when we think about the VR market, for the consumer VR market, and where it's at, and where it just feels like it's failing to grab hold in any meaningful way. And feels like it's more like it's slipping away than it's like surging forward. This doesn't feel like anything that's going to make it surge forward. Coming out with the best headset in the world and then saying it's $3,500, like nope. I feel like Apple's made some great devices, and I think that generally speaking, they've made some more good hardware than bad hardware over the last, I don't know, 15 years, whatever it is. This, and, you know, maybe this will be one of those situations where people are looking back and like, remember when people thought that the headset wasn't gonna fucking do anything? Hilarious. But this doesn't feel like those other moments. The iPhone, the iPod, those felt like things that were solving actual problems, or felt like, hey, look at how much more convenient this is. Because the MP3 player market was a fucking shit show. You know, for a long, you know, getting like a Diamond Rio or fucking, you know, like, put a proprietary memory card into this thing and you can have fucking 80 songs, you know, whatever it was. Like the iPad, the iPod and iTunes and, you know, that whole thing that came together, you know, I think really obviously like revolutionized a lot of things. I think the iPhone, smartphones in general, even from the first iteration that didn't have an app store, you were like, oh, well, there's probably something to this, but this doesn't feel like it has it. This doesn't feel like that moment. This doesn't feel like you're like, oh, there's something to this, because this feels like it is just a more expensive and better version of the thing that's already been out there for the last decade or so, that the market has already spoken pretty loudly and clearly to say, like, this is not a thing we want as a mainstream device. Like, there's going to be a crowd of people that want VR. There's going to be a crowd of people that are very interested in the games that can be made in VR and some of that stuff, but like, it's not going to be a big mainstream thing. And Apple, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like a fucking mess. Feels like a fucking mess. We're coming up on the Xbox Games Showcase. That'll be Sunday the 11th, 10 a.m. Pacific, according to the image I'm looking at. Aaron Greenberg, some people refer to him as Greenie, the Xbox VP of Games Marketing, has said on Twitter, speaking out a little bit, this is something I feel like he does specifically ahead of these events a little bit sometimes, a little bit of like, hey, we got some shit here. Basically, this is Video Games Chronicle caught this, and basically it's in reply on Twitter. He confirmed that none of our first-party games in the show are full CG trailers. Everything is either in-game footage, in-engine footage, or in-game footage with some cinematics. Each of our trailers will be labeled, so it is hopefully clear for our fans. Which is good. That's I think, again, you know, I also think that this is a little sideways jab at the PlayStation thing, which It felt like it was light on in-engine, in-game type of stuff. And so we'll see what they have to show. I think this raises the stakes a little bit on what they'll be showing, because you will be looking at it through those sorts of lenses, right? But that's good. Again, yes, as a reminder, he did specifically say first-party games. If third parties want to show up with a bunch of cinematics and show them, they're not going to say no. They cannot afford to say no. He also told someone else, there will be no movie trailers in our games show. In case you needed like a little extra, like, is he talking about the PlayStation thing? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. So that's, I don't know. Big talk. Like it's an interesting time for them, right? Obviously, without rehashing the entire thing, Microsoft has been getting raked over the coals constantly as a result of Redfall, but not just Redfall. And then, you had Phil Spencer get out there and talk to Kind of Funny in a very, I not to just like paraphrase it all the way down, but I took, if you had to sum it up in a sentence, he kind of said, yeah, we're fucking up. We need to be better. I'm like, yeah, yes. All of that is true. So, for as much as there can be a lot of high stakes on a thing that is ultimately a collection of trailers, and they will certainly get another crack at marketing most of these games again in case these trailers don't hit well. So it's not like a make or break moment for them, but as much as a E3 style press conference can be a make or break moment, this one is kind of headed in that direction. Obviously they're going to have Starfield broken out into its own separate thing. And so they will focus on what they've got. It seems like they've been teasing Fable a little bit. One of the kind of videos they put out on social seemed like it was a Fable reference. And so maybe we will finally see that thing. As for what else, I have no fucking idea. Yeah, it's easy to run down the list of games again and go like, would Perfect Dark be there? Like, I would think so. I don't know. I don't know anymore. There's a lot of stuff that could theoretically be there. But it'd be nice to see some release dates. It'd be nice to have some things coming out shortly, because I think that is maybe the big Xbox problem right now, is not just that they need more games, is that the games need to ship. And they need to be good also. Yeah. So they need to be on time and great. No pressure, I guess. Yeah, Forza will kind of be their big. But there's a separate Forza thing, I want to say, right? There's a separate Forza showcase. Is that later in the week? I will look here real quick and oh, you can't type Forza showcase into the internet because that's a term they use in the game. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what they have. They have a handful of announced games on the books that they could be revisiting, or maybe we'll see some more new stuff that we haven't heard of before. But generally, it feels like they've got enough stuff announced that needs to just start shipping and solidifying and coming out. Maybe I guess maybe do they close with and by announcing Gears? Is that a big enough thing? Who knows? Yeah, it's funny. I think everyone was expecting, and I think it's maybe a little bit unfair, but also like, because these things don't matter until they do, I guess. These showcase, these E3 press conferences, whatever you're like, they don't matter until they matter. And so it's very easy to just go like, fucking whatever. If one is bad, and just go like, well, hey, they've got more games in the works. They will announce them when they're ready, and fucking no one will talk about this moment except in like a weirdly clinical sense of like, remember that E3 press conference they had that was bad? I was like, yeah, remember when the other one was good? Yeah. Like, were the games good on the other? Like, it's a separate conversation, right? I think that Sony showed some interesting and fascinating stuff. It's just not the stuff that the vocal part of the audience wanted, right? Like, that's the problem with it. And so as a result, I think it's like people have taken a very negative tone around the Sony showcase, even the PlayStation showcase, that I look at and go like, there were interesting things there that I would like to know more about. But they weren't, it wasn't the next game from Naughty Dog. Here's Insomniac's next game. It wasn't the big first party studios bringing the big guns, the big franchises. It was like, here's all this other stuff that we're working on, and so I came away from that going like, that was fine. Am I jumping out of my chair crazy? No, but like, what, nothing that Sony would probably announce would probably do that. So I look at it more of like, Sony has talked quite a lot about wanting to move in this different direction and wanting to have live service games and wanting to broaden their portfolio. And then they had a showcase event that showed you that they meant it. It was like, hey, that wasn't just all talk. Like, no, here's fair games. Here's Marathon. It was a showcase of like, here's where we're going. It's not to say they won't yet again have more of the other stuff, but it is, again, like they deliberately said multiple times in the run up to that event that they were looking to broaden their portfolio and that they were looking to have 12 live service games out by some deadline a few years down the road or whatever it is. And so I look at the Sony thing and like the people that are disappointed by it are just kind of denying that change is happening, like in denial that is occurring for whatever reason. And, that's okay. They're perfectly within their rights as humans to do that. But like, Sony spent a lot of time telling you that they were going to do some different stuff, and then they showed some different stuff. I'm excited to see different stuff. I'm excited to see the PlayStation brand branching out and trying to do different things and trying to do, of course, like then you look at those things and you're like, how many of these are fucking 3-player PvPvE loot shooters of some variety, and then you're like, okay, well, that's all right. That's Destiny. They technically own that now. Fair Games sure looked a lot like that. And maybe the Marathon is sort of like that as well. And so maybe they aren't the most imaginative or varied takes. But anyway, it left me interested to see more, and they can always down the line when those games are ready, they can say, here's Ghost of Tsushima 2, or whatever the fuck it is. Here's another Ratchet. Here's another, I don't know. The Last of Us TV show did well, so here's another one of those. Whatever they end up doing, they could do it. Sly Cooper, but you get to buy skins for the van. What do you think? Van skins. Do we like the idea of van skins in our live service Sly Cooper game? All right, 100 Gabe Logans jump out of an airplane. Stick with me here. So I guess so that's the kind of the weird thing. But also I understand the reaction to that show was pretty negative. There were a lot of people that were very disappointed by what the Sony showcase had, because it wasn't the big guns, because it wasn't the big known sequels, the big, like all of that sort of stuff. And so as a result, that has put Microsoft in a position where they can like steal the season or, whatever it is. It'd be steal the show, but there's no show anymore. So, so they can kind of, if they can really come out here guns blazing, I think that they can get people excited about what they're doing. And that could be very big for them. because they need anything they can get. Positivity in their direction, they'll take it, man. They could use it. David Ellis left 343. They need all they like. God, if you lost David Ellis, what the fuck are you gonna do? So they need something. Every time. You know, when you think, like, I don't know, people do this with numbers. People are weird about numbers, right? But every time, and it seems like it happens more than it should for such a specific time. Every time when I see a clock and it is 3:43, when it's 3:43 on the clock, I always think about David Ellis. In my mind, that man had become the face of 343. There's plenty of people that work there. It's like a funky thing. It's just because, you know, I've known David Ellis for a long time. And now he has left the studio. What am I going to do? What happens now? You didn't think about me on this one, man. So, anyway, best of luck to David Ellis wherever he's headed. I do not know where he's going. Anyway, so the Xbox showcase, stakes are fucking high. I think specifically because, you know, they would be anyway, but they kind of got served up a nice Sony kind of did them a solid by disappointing players, if that makes any sense. So it kind of puts them in position where you can have Greenberg get out here and say, like, we're showing gameplay. You know, they by going second, they also get to react to the reactions of Sony's thing and be like, our stuff will be clear. We will clearly label everything, and a lot of it will be in engine or, you know, whatever else. So it puts them in this position where they can kind of do this. I'm very curious to see what they have to say when their show happens. Maybe even more so than the PlayStation one, because like we look at the last month or two of the kind of Xbox, I don't know, morale of the fan base, whatever I don't know how we codify this, but like they have been getting drugged through the mud pretty fucking hard this past couple of months. But if you wanted to be serious about it, they've been getting drugged through that mud for about the last 5-6 years. And so it'll be curious to see what they have, because they have been pretty bad at shipping games. And then obviously, you know, Redfall did not do them any favors. Redfall does not deserve to be the focal point of this stuff. It was never like some of the reporting coming out post release of Redfall, where there's like people internally talking to media and saying things like, we were hoping that Microsoft was going to come in and cancel it. It's like, oh shit, Jesus. All right, well, whew. Yep, we'll see. Some of the game names that Phil Spencer has mentioned aloud recently. Well, I don't know. Like, I guess the quote he gave to Kinda Funny was, we're going to announce some things that people haven't seen, some new games, and we're going to give updates to some of the things that were on your list. And the list was Avowed, Perfect Dark, Everwild, Fable, State of Decay 3, and Contraband. Contraband, right. I always forget about Contraband. You know, and obviously there's like Hellblade 2 or whatever. Yeah, you know, hey, just make a new Viva Pinata. All is forgiven. Like, you want to get people back on track? 2 things. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts 2 and a new Viva Pinata. No one can argue with that. You put those games out, like if you put those games out and go hard on both of them, if you will. I think that would be the feel-good duo. That would be some hot shit right there. There's never been a better time to make a sequel to Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. In the wake of Tears of the Kingdom, I think revisiting that concept and really blowing it the fuck out, and making something that is like deliberately built to be social and weird, as opposed to, you know, the Switch. I think that'd be fucking neat. Unfortunately, if you started that project right now, by the time Nuts and Bolts 2 actually came out, maybe you would miss the window on that. So I don't know. If they were already working on it, that'd be great. But that'd be ideal. Speaking of games they were already working on. Speaking of ill-conceived, speaking of the Switch, speaking of, Nintendo has finally pulled the trigger on announcing their sequel to 1-2 Switch. It is called Everybody 1-2 Switch. It is a sequel to 1-2 Switch. There's a man with a horse head in it. Apparently this game was it was a year ago that Fanbyte reported on the existence of this game and talked about that it was a big old minigame collection similar to the first one, and that they wanted to try to find ways to kind of set it apart. Then maybe it went with like a Jackbox motif. This is Video Games Chronicle kind of recapping some of this stuff a little bit. And so they haven't really said much about what Everybody 1-2 Switch is, but based on that reporting, it sounds like this game has been basically done for over a year. They're going to put it out June 30th for $30. And it sounds like the internal reaction to it was extremely negative. That was the reporting back at the time over on Fanbyte, which I guess technically is still a website. I know it's weird. Is AI running stories about how to best spend money in your favorite mobile games? Is that what the writing is on Fanbyte these days? Is it a robot told me how to play Genshin Impact? Are those stories there yet? Because if not, I got a great idea. Anyway, the reporting back then said that minigames were going to include things like musical chairs, bingo, and a take on Spin the Bottle in which players must compliment other people. However, feedback from playtesters was reportedly extremely negative, with families with children labeling the games tedious. And so it sounds like the struggle internally at Nintendo was over like, hey, do we need to keep working on this and put it out? Or should we put it out as part of the Switch Online expansion pack and just give it to people for free because it's such a piece of shit? And it sounds like the internal goals were to, no, we need to release this as a $60 game, and instead they sat on it for a year, and now they're going to put it out for $30. Very interested to see what that thing ends up being, I guess, but also not really. 1-2 Switch was a really good thing to have around the launch of the Switch as a tech demo. Obviously not nearly as good as Wii Sports was when the Wii came out. But, I remember when Nintendo brought it by the office and we played a bunch of it, and it was kind of like the first time to be like fucking around with like HD Rumble and some of the other, I think we saw it in New York first. We went to New York and played it there a little bit, but then they came out with it a little closer to launch and we saw a lot more of it. And yeah, it was okay at best for the time. It was fun once, right? You play it and you're like, yeah, okay, that's cool. All right, yeah, the Joy-Cons, huh? I guess they're not as good as a Wii remote, but you can do that. You can do this stuff, sure. So I don't know why you would make another one of these. I really don't know, like who would fall for this again. But we'll see. It'll be out in a few short weeks here. So, get your pre-orders. I don't know if it works with one of your vouchers. If you bought pre-order vouchers, maybe you could get this hot $30 game on a voucher. I just like saying the word voucher. Speaking of vouchers, Aspyr is not going to put out the promised DLC for their re-release of Knights of the Old Republic 2. they had originally announced that they were putting out something called the Restored Content DLC, which obviously, the cut content that people have found in the KOTOR over the year, I guess KOTOR 2 over the years, people are like, oh man, that'll be so cool. So when they announced it, they said like, hey, we're going to put out a Restored Content DLC. They have since put out they posted a JPEG to Twitter, so you know what we're in for here. That's right. It's an apology. We'd like to thank the KOTOR community for their immense passion and support for the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic series. That passion allowed us to bring this timeless series to the Nintendo Switch, and we are forever grateful. Sadly, today we are announcing that the Restored Content DLC for the Switch version of KOTOR 2 will not be moving forward for release. We'd like to thank everyone for their continued support by providing a complimentary video game key to players that purchased KOTOR 2 on Switch before this announcement. Players may pick a replacement key from the following list: KOTOR 2, The Sith Lords on Steam, Knights of the Old Republic on Switch, The Force Unleashed on Switch, Republic Commando on Switch, Episode 1 Racer on Switch, Jedi Knight Jedi Academy on Switch, or Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast on Switch. To receive your complimentary key, please visit support.aspire.com and submit a request with your Nintendo Switch proof of purchase attached. So they're giving you a free Star Wars game if you bought this other Star Wars game. So there's that, at least. I don't know. Maybe that's of interest to you. I don't know that I've seen how Force Unleashed runs on Switch. I thought I remembered hearing that it did not run great. But yeah, Aspire used to just be the crew that ported stuff to Mac. And they're like, yeah, we're putting Tony Hawk 3 out on the Mac. And you're like, why? Like, because someone has to. And I'm like, I get it. Okay. Yeah, sure. That's a market. Go for it. Now I guess they're the crew that puts stuff out on Switch and then, puts old games out on Switch. So they're an Embracer Group company, I believe, right? Yeah. Embracer embraced Aspire. Yes, if you go to the Aspire website, they also have things on here saying, yes, the Knights of the Old Republic remake, A Legend, remade for PS5 and PC, which, if you remember correctly, during the last Embracer call, Lars Wingefore, the head of Embracer, was asked about for a status update on the remake, and he was basically just like, my favorite question. That was in the middle of him getting shook by that deal falling through for billions of dollars and all of that other stuff. So who the heck knows what's going on over there? Or if this KOTOR remake ever even comes out, if Saber ends up with it or, whatever, some other, ship it over to some other part of Embracer. Who knows? Who knows? None of that seems like it's going well. We touched on it earlier. Facebook also announced another VR headset. We talked about this, the Verge had their report from an internal meeting not that long ago, kind of talking about the future of the Quest line of headsets. So none of this is hugely surprising, but they are, in fact, putting out the Meta Quest 3 this fall. $500 for a 120 gigabyte headset with an additional storage option also planned, according to videogameschronicle.com. That is my leading source for video game news. They have a big bar in the middle, and they put all the news stories there, and they are well written and solid, and can't recommend them enough. Polygon, Eurogamer. If you're looking for websites that are posting news in a way that is easy for you, a human, to consume, meaning it doesn't have 20 things in the middle about here's everything we know about a game that just got announced, or a bunch of fucking guides. Those are the three websites that I think are doing it quite well. It'll have more powerful guts. It'll have a next generation Snapdragon chipset. The headset is 40% slimmer, so it's like a little less on the face. You know, it's not quite as thick up on the face. Better pass-through cameras. They are looking to try to do some kind of AR type stuff. They cite Demio, the kind of tabletop sort of thing, as like, what if you could play this on your kitchen table? Like, yeah, okay, I guess you could do that. And it'll be compatible with the existing library of Quest games. Presumably, it will also hook up to a PC and let you do all that stuff. I don't know why they would take that away. So, you know, that seems like a, you know, hey, a better, lighter headset. Not the worst thing in the world. I don't know if you already own a Quest 2, unless you're like using it to death, then why you would really feel the need to upgrade. The controllers don't have the rings on them anymore because they're tracking a slightly different way. And so they're saying it is improved tracking, but the controllers are a little bit easier to pick up and put down. And yeah, I don't know. It's another VR headset. They're going to have more details in September, supposedly. So yeah, we'll see. Like I said, they'll do an upgraded version of that with more storage. You know, if this one's $500, maybe they do a $256 for $600 or something dumb like that. I don't know. And that's that. I don't know that I have anything more to say about VR headsets that we didn't already say about the Apple stuff. But yeah, they're going to make another one of those. And, you know, it's convenient because it's, again, I think that inside out tracking is nicely convenient compared to, like, that's the trade-off, right? Like if you want to go get a Valve Index, which to me is like, feels like the sweet spot of like, hey, this is an nicely performing headset that tracks really well and all that stuff, but you got to put up your lighthouses, you got to put up your tracking shit, and I don't know that I'm ever going to be in a position to do that. Maybe if I move everything out to the garage, I could get some light stands or whatever and and hook that stuff up once and for all, but I don't know. And so in light of that, a nice inside-out tracking headset that doesn't need that stuff, but also still hooks up to a PC, it's attractive enough. There's value there. So, yeah, I don't know. But like, I don't really care. As someone who, you know, has a relatively powerful PC already or whatever, like when they're like, it's got a better processor in it, and so it runs a bunch of like the stuff that runs natively on the headset is rarely of interest to me. I don't know why. You know who could maybe use one of those headsets to help pass the time? Yuji Naka, who faces 2.5 years in prison for insider trading. He pled guilty to this insider trading. And it sounds like he could potentially face a prison sentence of 2.5 years and potentially a fine of over $1.2 million. His defense has requested that the fine be reduced and the sentence be suspended. A final decision is expected to be made on July 7th. So we'll know relatively soon if he's gonna be doing hard time, baby. Or if he's gonna, how long he'll spend in the Hoosgow. This is wild. So I guess this was like, it happened twice, right? So he was arrested in November and then arrested again in December because he had done it again. So the first time it was in November, it was alleged that he knew that a developer called Aiming was working on a new Dragon Quest mobile game before it was announced, and then he went and bought 10,000 shares of their stock. And then in December, he was arrested again because he did similar insider trading after learning the Final Fantasy VII First Soldier, or Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier, with mobile developer A-Team Entertainment. And so, yeah, he was quoted in March as saying, "There is no doubt that I found out about the games before they were made public and bought shares in them." So he has pled guilty and said, like, yeah, no, I did the thing you're saying I did. Yes, I did do that. Yes, I did in fact do that. You caught me doing the thing. On top of that, I made Balan Wonderworld. And they're like, okay, no suspended sentence. Throw the book at him. It's fun to joke about Yuji Naka going to prison for his crimes against video games, but it's really shitty to make fun of Yuji Naka for going to jail. It's really hard. So, it's about time. We've been trying to get him since the 90s for what he's been doing to really humanity. And ladies and gentlemen, we got him. And that's it for news. I just the idea that yes, the father of Sonic the Hedgehog is maybe going to go to jail for 2.5 years, not for making Sonic. That's a crime that unfortunately we all now live in a prison due to his actions. But hey, just like people get Oscars for bad movies at the end of their career because it's like, oh, we should have got one for this other one years ago. This is like that, but with jail. Like, we didn't get him for Sonic the Hedgehog, but we'll get him on this insider trading thing, and that's it for the news. Why don't we get into some emails here? podcast@guard.bike is the email address. And you can send me an email. A lot of people have sent me an email. We kind of talked about this, but Hamdemonium from the Discord says, Apple wants to sell us the Magic Leap all over again with the Vision Pro. How do you feel about the Vision Pro as one of the few Magic Leap owners? Do you have any desire to pull it out and use it again? No. I don't. But yeah, there's definitely similarities, at least in the pitch, right? I mean, the Apple headset is capable of more than the Magic Leap, that first edition Magic Leap is. I know they've have a second headset out now or coming soon. I forget what it is, but like I know Magic Leap had another device. But no one supported it. No one, I don't know that anyone made a single app for that thing that was made like publicly available. They sent that thing to me. I did the Weta AR thing on it twice. Only because I had to show it off to multiple people that were like, let me see that thing. I remember the run up to the Magic Leap's release, everything we heard about it was that it was revolutionary and it was going to change everything. And for the longest time, no one knew what it was. It was just like, I don't know what they're working on over there, but it's going to change. It's going to be fucking crazy. It's going to totally change the world. And then we finally heard, oh, it's an AR headset. You're like, oh, okay. And they're saying like you won't need a monitor because the monitors will be in front of you. You're like, okay, well, I'd like to try one of those. And then 2 years later, or whatever it was, the thing finally came out. But I remember talking to someone who had seen it. A couple of people who had seen it before it was widely known what Magic Leap really was, and talking to them about it, and they were pretty blown away at the time. But I think it's very easy to be blown away by things pre-release, especially when nothing like it exists. Like it's a really crazy concept, and you see it, and you're like, I've never seen anything like this before. Like I felt the same way about seeing HoloLens. When I saw that for the first time, and did those demos and everything else. It was like, this is really crazy. It's really crazy that we can do this. You know, separate from like, is it useful or is it viable as a product or whatever? You're like, this is fucking nuts. So yeah, but I got a bunch of emails from Magic Leap saying like, there's a problem with the batteries and you need to download a firmware update. Our records indicate you have not downloaded the firmware update, and you should discontinue use of your Magic Leap before the battery burns you alive. You know, whatever it was. They had issued some update to it that fixed the problem. So it wasn't like a recall, but it was like, you need to update your firmware. And like, robots were sending those emails, but I just wanted to hit reply on it and be like, don't worry, I'm going to be just fine. I don't think the Magic Leap battery is going to come and get me, because that thing's under a mountain of boxes in my garage and I don't know where the fuck it is anymore. Ain't no one. It'll be fine. Gustavo writes in and says, do you think arcades have any major role left to play in the progression of video games as a medium? Yeah, well, I think so we need to kind of like evolve what we're talking about and why we're talking about it, right? The concept of location-based entertainment, I think there's still potentially value in that, but like arcade cabinets that are running game, like no. As far as like moving the medium forward, no. But I do think that there's a case to be made for like, like there's not a lot of good reasons to, or I think there are not enough reasons out there for you to go out and buy a VR headset, but having these big, weird shared experiences where you are physically in the same space as other people who are wearing headsets. Like there was some Ghostbusters thing. There's like a variety of things where they just like, we took a warehouse and 5 people are going to put on headsets and run around inside of this warehouse and we can track the whole thing. Like those are neat ideas that you can't readily do on your own. Right. So the idea of like, hey, check this shit out. It's way too expensive for you to buy it for your home, but hey, check this shit out. Come down here and give us $20. That was always the promise of the BattleTech Center and Magic Edge, which was a flight simulator, like a cockpit based, they had SGI workstations set up to it. It was the 90s. And so you would go get in these things that wouldn't rotate 360 degrees, but they would rotate enough to where you felt like you were rolling all the way over. And so you could go fly fake jets and dogfight people inside of these cockpits with like very realistic controls. The BattleTech stuff was the same way. You got in a cockpit, you had foot pedals and a bunch of switches and crazy shit. And they sold you a manual for how to play it. That included stuff like, if you hit this switch, you're going to turn on advanced control mode and you'll be able to torso twist. Because normally they lock it into a normal mode where the mech is always facing forward because it's too hard for people to visualize the torso twist. But if you're good enough to do that, you can turn on torso twist and then you can aim wherever you want and then use the foot pedals to kind of sidestep and strafe and do different shit. And so it was this, like, for the time, and by the time I mean 1990 fucking 3. It was fucking bananas. It was the coolest shit, man. It was so fucking cool. It was goofy because you would go and, like a laser tag arena, if you ever went and played laser tag at a QZAR or something like that, sometimes you would get the guy giving the briefing who was like in character, and BattleTech was very big on that. Magic Edge was even bigger on that. Like they were just like, here's a guy who has watched Top Gun a lot of times and he's going to fucking wear his fucking flight suit and talk to you about flying jets. And you're just like, dude, I don't, like, shut up. Please stop. Please stop. Please, please, please stop. The BattleTech stuff, yeah, it still exists in some capacity. Like I know some Dave and Buster's have some of that shit. They eventually, when I started going to the BattleTech Center, there was one in Chicago. So when we would go out there for CES, we would go to the mall that had the BattleTech Center in it. And a lot of companies would have parties at the BattleTech Center or parties at the arcade that was right there across from the BattleTech Center. That was the first time I saw John Romero in person. I saw him from the back. I was like, his hair is amazing. Holy shit. BattleTech, the BattleTech stuff was the only game they had. They eventually rolled out a second game called Red Planet, I believe it's called, and it was like a futuristic racing game. And I remember playing that once, and it sucked. Compared to BattleTech, where you had all this like like all these cool options, like Red Planet, there's just like, here's this generic dumb fucking racing game. Like the hardware was not good enough to give you like a really good intense frame rate for like high speed action, you know? Like envision Star Fox on the SNES, like somewhere around that frame rate, probably a little bit higher than that, but obviously it looked a lot better. You know, it was fucking neat. So I think there's like, you know, if you can come up with ideas like that, there are reasons to, you know, you could build a business around that. Is it like an amazing business? Is it like a world-changing business? Probably not. But I think that someone could come up with something that was more location-based like that, or, you know, some kind of twist on on a laser tag or something that was more of a VR or video game themed twist on it or something, that maybe you could do something. But no, I like arcades in their kind of traditional sense. No, I don't think that those have much of a role left to play for advancing the medium. They're just neat. Cody from Roswell writes in and says, lately I've been thinking about GameTap a lot. Okay. Was it before its time? With the success of Game Pass, would it have survived today? Would something like this survive with something like Epic taking the torch and doing a GameTap like? I figured Steam wouldn't be interested in doing this. Thanks. So GameTap was a subscription service, and there were games that appeared on the subscription service if you were a subscriber. Including like a PC port of like Panzer Dragoon, and like it was weird, like stuff that didn't exist on PC. Like they had the rights to some classic games. And they did some emulation stuff, and so it was a lot of Sega games were there for a while. Turner owned it, and so they tried to do some Turner programming alongside it. They tried to build a content team at one point, which I know a couple of people who went and worked for that for a while, and it sounds like that was not great. And so I don't know, the service always seemed like you were downloading the games to play them. It wasn't like a streaming service per se. And so at least there was that, but it was janky. Like you could do it better now, but like I feel like, you know, Game Pass is kind of already doing it better now. And so you kind of wouldn't really do it this way. The GameTap had like there were like GameTap exclusive episodes of Space Ghost that they made for that were not like were like really short or something like that. And then they would occasionally do interviews, and so this well, maybe this isn't going to play if I don't also play the video. But go look on YouTube for something called Quick Hit Lady Sovereign. It is the only video on this channel, on this GameTap YouTube channel. Oh, all right.
Yo, what's up? This is Lady Sovereign hanging out with some GameTap thingy majiggy. I can't even say bloody words.
So they interviewed, there was an unreleased interview because she was so bad that they couldn't use the interview, but the video leaked out somehow, and it is now out there online. I'm sure that there are some fun stories about GameTap, but Yeah, I don't know. That thing always seemed like a fucking weird wreck. Sheldon writes in and says, Diablo IV is a fantastic game, but it just makes me want to play Marvel Heroes. Do you think we will get a sequel or return of Marvel Heroes if Diablo IV is a success? No, I don't think. Nothing about Diablo IV is going to influence Marvel Heroes. Marvel Heroes is a licensing thing. The company that made it, I don't even think exists anymore. Like, could there be another Marvel-themed, like, loot game like that? Sure. Yes. Absolutely. Someone will eventually do that. But, no. I don't think we'll get a Marvel Heroes sequel. Marvel Heroes was great. It was it was free to play action RPG. Captain America was really fun to play. I leveled up I max leveled a bunch of characters in that game. But Captain America was always my favorite because he had his cool boomerang shield thing. But no. Garrick writes in and says, since it's not E3 season again, I have a question about your personal E3 legacy. Finally. The questions that matter. When your grandkids ask you about your life, is there a particular year of E3 that will instantly make you wistful for the bygone days of yore? Is it more likely you will combine specific moments into a single story? I'm super bad with, like, the years just run together. I have no fucking idea what happened what year. It's the interesting thing about doing this show with Glenn, about doing Game Boys to Men, available at patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann, is that I have to do like a lot of like time-based research to be like, oh, okay, this was the year where this stuff happened. I thought it was here. So like, I always thought that the first E3 was where a PlayStation was being shown off to the side by a company that made controllers or something, and there was no official Sony presence on the show floor, but these guys had a PlayStation running Toshinden, and it was the coolest thing in the fucking world. But that wasn't the first E3. It was January CES from that year, because that was like 2 months after the PlayStation had come out in Japan, but Sony wouldn't really talk about the PlayStation in the US until the first E3 later in 95. And so in my mind, though, that was always E3 95 was always that kind of all of that shit in one. But Sony actually had a mild presence at E3 95. And also that's where the Saturn launched. So I have to go read up on that and sometimes watch videos that people took on the show floor to get a feeling of like, okay, what the fuck was this year? So I remember specific moments, I remember me and Adam Boys driving around in my car with the mock-up PlayStation 4 that we had shown on the live stream the night before, and just like having this thing in my car and being like, I hope we don't fucking break it or something, and he had to return it. We had to drive back to the hotel so that he could hand it off to some facilities guy or something like that for Sony. And then we drove home after that. Like, I remember that. I remember like that thing just sitting on the top of my car as we're loading stuff in and going, oh, we should probably put this inside the car so that people don't see it, or so that we don't accidentally drive off without it. And that sort of shit. So, that's the sort of stuff I think about, are individual moments. And the years and stuff just blend together. So like, who announced what, when, I don't know. I remember Sony had that one press conference where they had Shenmue and they had the Final Fantasy thing, and that was a big deal. What year was that? Fucking, I don't know. 2015. I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know. But I'm real bad at it's separating the years. It all just kind of it's all just a series of appointments. It's just like, it's one backstage at a booth. Would you like a Diet Coke? Okay, sit in here and then we'll show you this. And then you can, it's all of it just runs together. Let's see here. Rohin from Albuquerque writes, says, one of the co-creators of the Guitar Hero franchise recently did an interview where he discussed how the game came into an existence. In it, he mentioned that there were early signs it was successful at E3. Sony booked an entire room just to put Guitar Hero in it and let people play all day. Then they heard Nintendo was also obsessed with it and playing it all day, despite the fact that it was at the time exclusive to PlayStation. Do you remember the first time you saw Guitar Hero? Well, I guess those things would have happened after the game was already out, I assume. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before, but like Guitar Hero is the best thing to ever come out of Kensha Hall at E3. Like Red Octane, the company that had been known for just making fucking DDR controllers and shit. Decent, good ones. Like they were the company that making like the good DDR mats and shit. Red Octane had a booth in Kensha Hall, and they were like, we got a thing, and so Guitar Freaks was already out in Japan, and I had already imported Guitar Freaks guitars and was playing the shit out of those Konami games. And so we took an appointment to go see what was Guitar Hero 1. Well before it came out. This was like the announcement of the game and everything else. And so it was the first time that thing was being shown anywhere, as far as I know. And like, it was the sort of thing that you went and you saw it and you were like, holy shit, holy fucking shit. Because we were big, me and Ryan Davis were big Guitar Freaks players. There were a handful of us that were way into it. And so seeing this and being like, oh man, it's got 2 more buttons on the guitar. Holy shit. Like that's the crazy. And it's got music that you've heard before. And and that's nuts. Oh my God. They're going to do like an American Guitar Freaks. That was really how you thought of it. It was like, oh man, they're making an American Guitar Freaks. But it was so good. It was so well made. Even back then you could tell like, this is a pretty awesome product. Like this demo is really impressive. It's coming together really, and so I think, that was the sort of thing that like word of mouth kept spreading. I think, I don't know if I was the person at the first appointment, but it was the sort of thing that like someone left that appointment and said, you need to fucking see this. You need to go over there right now and fucking get a demo for this game. Like just show up. It'll be fine. Because like, there was not a ton of word of mouth around it yet. And so it wasn't like they were getting swarmed. I don't know if I assume by the end of the show, it was the sort of thing that everyone wanted to see it or something, because as word of mouth traveled, but yeah, that thing was cool. I remember we spent time talking to, Harmonix wasn't really, there was probably someone from Harmonix there, but Harmonix, you didn't really think of them as the way you thought about Harmonix in the years that would follow, right? Red Octane was really kind of positioned as like, it's the Red Octane is publishing this game. We're getting into game publishing, and we're going to publish this game, Guitar Hero, and yeah, we're making it. And you're like, okay. And they were working with the crew of people. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it was like the crew of people that like produced the soundtrack and in a lot of cases recorded, because there's a lot of sound alikes in Guitar Hero 1, because they didn't have the money to go get masters. Companies wouldn't even talk, probably wouldn't even take the meeting with them most of the time. Harmonix did have something of a history in music games at that point, but they were not a big enough deal to get those meetings. And so they re-recorded all those songs, because they needed the masters, they needed stems to make the game. And so they had a crew that they had employed. There was a guy, Marcus, I want to say was his name. And he played guitar on a lot of that stuff. And so we interviewed him once or twice. And in the run up to release, like we were big believers in Guitar Hero from the minute we saw it. And then through that, eventually, obviously, like harmonics would start to rise, I guess. Like you started to hear more about harmonics, especially when they started working more with actual masters more of the time. And so the crew of people doing sound alikes were needed less and less often as the Guitar Hero franchise kind of went on. And then obviously they, when the split happened with Guitar Hero, with the Activision sale and whatever else, then it became like, okay, well now Harmonix, the makers of Guitar Hero, the people that actually made the video game, are going out and making a full band game, and MTV is going to publish it and EA is going to distribute it. And that's when you started hearing more directly from Harmonix. And, you started seeing more of like Alex Rogopoulos out and about doing interviews. I want to say it was probably around the Rock Band time frame is when you started seeing Harmonix around a lot more. And so sometime in that, probably around that time frame is probably, I don't know, because Alex went to go work there after everything went fucking south. Alex went and did PR for Harmonix for a while. And then that's how I kind of met John Drake and Eric Pope and, Casey Malone, it's like the Aaron Trites and kind of the crew of people that were Annette. Nick Chester was there for a while. I knew Nick from before, but the kind of crew of people that would be out there hauling Rock Band kits from show to show to try to get people to care about the game and all of that sort of stuff. So, kind of, it all kind of blossomed out from there, I guess. It was a magical time when all that stuff was happening. I remember when we were supposed to get our Rock Band kits in the mail and they all got stolen because they all said Rock Band on the outside of the boxes. And so someone like UPS was supposed to deliver these boxes and someone just fucking jacked them all. And so I think half the review copies of Rock Band 1, I think it was 1. It could have been 2, but I think it was Rock Band 1 that like all that shit just got straight up stolen. And so they had to frantically ship out new kits to reviewers at what I assume is great expense. But yeah, I remember that being fucking crazy. But like we had that shit set up, as soon as that thing came in, we set it all up and left it set up. It was a great time. And like I miss it, but also I understand and respect why it went away. If that makes any sense. Hank from Saskatchewan writes in and says, I saw a big black pickup truck the other day with a gigantic Xbox logo and the Call of Duty logo emblazoned on the back window. If you were forced to display a logo for gaming hardware and gaming software on your car, what would they be? I wonder, because, they have sold, that's not what, there were Call of Duty licensed Jeeps that were like Call of Duty edition Jeep Cherokee or whatever the hell it was. But this doesn't sound like that at all. This sounds like someone just got out there and put a Call of Duty logo and an Xbox logo on their truck for some reason. And I don't understand why one would do that. But if I had to display a logo for gaming hardware and gaming software on my car, what would they be? I would maybe just I think the software, it would be Reactor, the box art for Reactor for the Atari 2600. But maybe, yes, the FM Towns Marty. Get that Marty, get Marty on there. I don't know. I was gonna say the ColecoVision logo would be. I'd get the Intellivision Amico logo on there to let people know that I'm serious about gaming and family. And then next to that, it would say Shark Shark. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird that someone would do that. I don't know. People do weird shit with cars. Nick in Australia writes in and says, do you remember how people got upset over FTR saying they were not included in the roster for AEW Fight Forever? Well, if you go to the Steam listing for Fight Forever, you can see they are not in the base game roster, but instead in the season pass content. So people will get to play as FTR after all. They were just not in the based game. The base game, not the base. The game is the game based? I don't know. We will see. It is based and punk pilled. What is the stupidest freak out you remember fans having over a wrestling video game? I don't know. So I think that all of the complaining about the AEW games roster was always dumb. Is the roster great? No. Is the roster current? No. And so, you know, it was one of those situations where you have a lot of people talking out of context and a lot of people who don't fucking understand how these games get made and how these rosters get locked down pretty early on in development. You know, there are changes you can make if you absolutely have to, but you're not going to go add like, oh, they signed FTR, let's put them in the game. No, you're going to make them DLC. That's like I think the idea that Evil Uno is not in the game is far worse, because he was someone who was with the company and had been in, you know, at least somewhat prominent roles before the announcement of the game. So FTR not being in the game, you're like, yeah, of course. The problem with the roster in the AEW game is that the game has just taken too long to come out. And so they made a lot of those choices a long time ago, 2 eras ago. You know, AEW has changed so much since that game got announced. And since so many of those choices have been made, that, you know, that's your problem. And that's the entire, that is really, when you look at the entirety of that game, I think a lot of it is a situation where you're just like, man, this game was in development too long. Also, it is a first generation product. It was never going to be something that was going to compete directly feature for feature with the WWE game. They were always trying to make something that was a little smaller. Like it seemed like for a while there that it was going to be digital only, that they weren't even going to do physical copies of the game, that it was, you know, like, here's this kind of smaller thing that we're doing, and that will grow it over time, you know, and they wanted the first thing to be a little more humble or whatever. So, you know, it was always going to be a game with a roster that updated via DLC. And how long they'll update it, I don't know. It doesn't seem like something that they're going to make an annual product. So maybe they'll do 2 years of DLC and put another game out. Maybe they'll want to rush to a second product because they will be able to add more to it and kind of do the things they probably had to cut to get the first one out the door in the first place. So maybe they will end up having a second product relatively quickly, but I wonder. But it's like you see people that are like, you know, in wrestling contexts talking about the game who don't pay attention to video games, or they do and they're dumb, or, you know, whatever the situation is. But you just look at it and go like, yeah, man, fucking the WWE games roster is pretty out of date every time they put it out too. This is just how this shit happens. Sports games have to get locked down, like games with real people in them. Like, you know, fucking plans change, pal. And fucking people move to other companies and shit always fucking happens. And so it's not surprising, especially for a game that got delayed and was in development for as long as this one is, it's going to be extra out of date because the choices still had to be made all that time. Yeah, well, Cody Rhodes might be in this fucking game for all we know. They seem to say he was going to stay in the game. I don't know if that's still the case, but yeah, he's still in. Yeah. So think about that. Think about how old this game is roster wise. All the things they had to do. And then suddenly like, oh, we were going to put CM Punk in it. Are we still doing that? And the answer is like, I don't know. Fucking hold on. Don't say anything about this video game until this fucking situation's resolved one way or the other. Okay. I'll be back to you in 6 months. It's just like, it's a fucking mess, you know? So it's unsurprising that it's a mess. and I think the reasons why it is a mess make perfect sense. Does that excuse it? Does that mean the game's going to get oh, it's amazing because, like, no. But at the end of the day, like, it's very easy to understand why the game is the way it is, roster wise and whatever else. If it's good or not, I don't know. I haven't played it. I'm looking forward to trying it out. And all that sort of stuff. But like, in terms of roster stuff, like at the back when that was happening, when people were like, I can't believe FTR, this tag team, I can't believe these guys aren't, valued enough to be in the video game. It's like, no, you stupid fuck. Don't you fucking know how this shit works? It takes fucking 5 minutes no, it has nothing to do with how they're fucking valued or not valued. It's, hey man, the reality of making fucking games, like, you can't have all these moving targets on the roster and still ship a game someday. It just ain't gonna fucking happen. So fucking calm the fuck down. Christ. Yeah, I want to play that thing. Which is, that's not something I've said about a wrestling game in a long time. So it's cool to see something maybe new. That said, it's also weird to be talking about a game being something new when it's Ukes. We'll see. Chuck writes in and says, I have often thought of Diablo as a proto-MMO. Was it really the first live service game? No. No, Chuck, it was not. When I think about live service games, but I don't really think about, not even live service games per se. When I think about the evolution of the MMO, when I think about the evolution of multiplayer games and so on and so forth, I tend to think about Guild Wars in terms of the types of updates and expansions and stuff that were sold for Guild Wars, in terms of Guild Wars having a significantly large social space, but then the gameplay areas were instanced off. Guild Wars, in a lot of ways, the first Guild Wars is the blueprint for how we do these games now. People who develop video games, do those games now. Destiny is a Guild Wars clone, if you want to like work in that parlance, because Guild Wars didn't have a subscription, and Guild Wars had the vibe of an MMO. It had a lot of the feel of like, oh, this is big like an MMO, and it's sprawling, and there's a lot to do here, and there's like a multiplayer component that is always kind of present and accounted for in this, but I don't have to pay them $15 a month. This is amazing. Like, that was a big part of the pitch back then. It was like, man, you're going to get this fucking awesome game. You're just going to buy it once, and you never have to you don't have to buy the expansions if you don't want to, but you do not have to pay us a monthly fee. And it was weirdly revolutionary at the time, for a game to be doing that. But that's how they all are now. And it's part of it is advancements in technology, but also it's part of it is like a smarter deployment of that technology. Instead of just like, we need to have all these server blades so that when someone clicks the fucking Ner'zhul button, they fucking log into the Ner'zhul fucking shard, and here's the server, this is it, and they get on there, and because we have to run all these fucking weird racks, we got to charge them $15 a month because this is fucking crazy. The way we've architected this is nuts, and so we have to pay them money. Technology got better. You don't have to do that as much, and the server aspects of it are handled, in the cloud a little differently than that, and there's just a lot of different ways to. It's a lot of different ways to fuck that pig. That's the terminology, right? That don't include you having to charge people a monthly subscription for your game to continue to exist. You don't have a run rate on it that you're just like, if we're not making $15 a month off at least this many millions of people, that we're shutting this shit down because it's a failure. They can do it differently. And Guild Wars, I think, is the game that really paved the way for that. Obviously, Diablo did have online play, but it wasn't really, like, it was peer hosted. Phantasy Star Online is another game that kind of comes up, but that's a 4-player game, and you can connect to each other, and it has kind of drop in, drop out co-op, but there's still a host, and there's still people that are joining the host in those sorts of cases. And they have lobbies, but it's not meant as the big social city space the way that some of those other games have done it. So yeah, Guild Wars, to me, Guild Wars was it was the culmination of a handful of things. But Guild Wars, because of the way it was instanced off and because of the way it had the social areas where you saw other human players a lot and you could socialize with them in mass, and you're like, there's a lot of fucking people here for the time. To me, Guild Wars is the game that kind of started that pivot and felt like the revolution realized, compared to some of the games that came before it. Is it Hellgate London? Probably not. But yeah, I remember Guild Wars at the time feeling like a steal, feeling like a bargain, feeling like you were like getting over on someone because here was this expansive role-playing game, and you were used to. It seemed like the sort of thing that would have been like, oh my god, we're paying $15 a month to play this. And it would not have been nearly as cool of a game if you had to pay a subscription fee to play it. But man, Guild Wars 1 was fucking incredible. I think Guild Wars 2 is incredibly disappointing. I remember when that game came out going like, man, they're making a Guild Wars 2 finally after all these years. I remember getting my hands on that thing and playing it and be like, why are there so many jumping puzzles in this game? What are we doing? Like, why do I have to jump around the town to find these items and do, there was a lot of, that's not the only thing, but there was just a lot of stuff about Guild Wars 2 that I felt really, I found it really dull. I found it really samey and boring, like compared to Guild Wars 1 and the way Guild Wars 1 classes were built and everything else. I thought the way that they, like, it felt like it just felt like generic to me. Like, now you just kind of made an MMO. It kind of seems like a bad one of those. I don't know. Randy in Portland says, do you think Nintendo just plain old hates video games? They seem to be burying their own grave when it comes to silly hardware gimmicks that third parties don't support, incredibly slow first-party games production that release on outdated hardware that take years of polish just to run at 30 frames per second. Should Nintendo just pull the plug on consoles, pull a Sega, and develop games for other platforms? In a world where Tears of the Kingdom just came out and people are spending hundreds of hours playing it and it is selling millions of copies and it is probably going to go on and win a bunch of Game of the Year awards because people are too fucking narrow-minded to enjoy a game like Street Fighter 6. I'm like, well, it's got to be Tears of the Kingdom. It's like, no, it doesn't. Have you played Street Fighter 6? You should check out Street Fighter 6. Anyway, no, they're doing just fine. That's actually the same answer. I don't know if you saw that dumb fuck, the fucking jack off, one of the founders of fucking Reddit. Stupid ass. What a dumb motherfucker. What an absolute idiot. Was out there on Twitter being like, in the next 5 years, play to earn games are going to be the dominant. This is going to be the only way people play games because they'll be earning a currency of some kind, and this is the way forward for video games. And had this big long thing about fucking, all their fucking Web3 fucking crypto jack off bullshit. The very idea. And I was not the first person to fucking point this out, but this dumb motherfucker is out there trying to fucking dig up this that has already been like pretty thoroughly rejected. Not to say that these stupid fuckers aren't out there still working on this shit, but the industry has been pretty fucking clear that like, hey, and the audience has been pretty fucking clear that that's not a fucking thing they want. So for him to be out there in mid 2023 with this fucking 2-year-old, like, play to earn. They're going to pay you to play them. Like a couple of weeks after fucking Tears of the Kingdom came out, and people were like, yeah, I'll pay $70 and then play this for 300 hours because it is incredibly enjoyable and I am having a fucking joyous, amazing time with this. And then, you know, Diablo and Street Fighter, you know, like it's been a fucking great year for games. And like to just like go like, nope, none of those games are going to exist because in 5 years, you're just going to be playing games for cryptocurrency. Like, you fucking moron. You absolute stupid motherfucker. Like, what a fucking stupid motherfucker. It was just like one of the most mind-blowing fucking out of nowhere bad takes. You're like, man, people are still like this, huh? People still fucking believe this horse shit, huh? Wow. It just, yeah, the idea that's of someone clinging to that fucking shit. I forget the fucking guy's name. He's like, yeah, he's one of the founders of fucking Reddit. I know that much. I don't remember his fucking name, but what a fucking dumbass. So yeah, no, I don't think Nintendo hates video games. I think that Nintendo, you know, cares more about families than they care about video games. And, you know, they care about making a lot of money, and they're doing quite well at that, seemingly. And they run things their way. They care more about running things their way, and it's working out well enough for them that they don't have to change. So I agree with you that, like, you know, the third-party support on Nintendo platforms has not felt amazing since, I mean, was it the GameCube? Is that the last, you know, like, is the GameCube the last Nintendo platform that you looked at and felt it was contemporary alongside the other hardware platforms that they had? Or on the market, meaning. So, you know, the GameCube was right there with the PlayStation 2 and it was right there with the Xbox. The same game came out on all three and it was fucking the same across the board. And everyone's just supported it and it was fine. Like, I think the GameCube was not a great platform. I think the controller sucks. I think, you know, it's just whatever. It's got a handle on it, which is nice. But I don't love the GameCube, but BMX XXX came out. You know, like game, you know, third-party games came out on that thing the same way they came out on Xbox and PS2. And it hasn't been like that since. And I think Nintendo's third-party sales have probably suffered, and their third-party relations have probably suffered to a certain extent as well, but it doesn't matter. They're doing fine. A lot of those third-party games are games that sell big in the West, and, you know, then you look at the Japanese numbers and you see that Splatoon 3 is fucking blowing up, and, you know, how crazy it is, and the sales on that game are nuts in Japan, and, you know, like, they're focused more on that. They're focused more on their own lineup, and to them, I think the third-party games are something they want to have, and they want to do right by their third-party partners every step of the way. But, you know, at the end of the day, they're not going to sacrifice their own experience. They're not going to make a platform that's too expensive. Like, they're not going to do that just to satisfy third parties. They're going to build the thing that lets them make the games they want to make. And it's going to, you know, sell well because people like those franchises, and they generally, you know, they make games to the hardware, so you can kind of mask some of the technical shortcomings behind that a little bit. The Switch maybe less so. The Switch is the most standard platform they've made in 3 generations, if you think about it. It just has multiple form factors, but it is a screen you are looking at while playing games with dual joysticks, you know, notwithstanding where you're taking a Joy-Con off and holding it sideways like some kind of fucking psycho. But generally speaking, it is the most normal platform they've made in a while. And I think a lot of third parties came along for the ride. I think you hear a lot about indie games that have done really well on Switch. I think, you know, there are third-party success stories on the Switch for sure. But it's not a crowd of people that's going to go after the big AAA third-party game. you know, you could put Call of Duty on a Switch, but it's not like, that's not where the audience for that franchise is. And that's not where the best online experience is. So, you know, in that world, like, there's no world in which Call of Duty is best on Switch. Taking the like performance limitations out of account even, and just going like, yeah, do you want to play this game on this screen? Not really, sort of. That'd be nice. But I'd rather have the high resolution. I'd rather have the better assets. Like the, you know, Battlefield is another really good example of like, here's a big performance shooter that shows up on these other platforms, and you know, it's like people are caring about frame rates and this and that, and you know, like all of that shit. On Switch, it's not about that stuff. And so it was always weird to me when games like Doom were coming out on Switch. It's cool that they did, and it's cool that it ran as well as it did, and you know, the people doing ports for stuff like that and Overwatch and, you know, and whatever else, I think they did some fucking amazing work. But at the end of the day, people are buying the Nintendo platform to play Nintendo's games, and everything else is just like a nice add-on benefit. It's complementary, the third-party support. It's a very different situation, as opposed to like, you know, what's the number one selling game on Xbox or PlayStation? It's not a first-party game, right? It's probably Grand Theft Auto 5 in some sick, twisted world. Or, you know, it's Call of Duty, or, you know, whatever. It's FIFA. That's not the case on Switch, because Nintendo is they're playing a different game. They have a very different business strategy, and it's working for them. And so, you know, I think if you just care about Nintendo games, then yeah, buy a Switch. But like, if you care about games in a larger sense, the Switch is not the console. It's not the platform to buy. Ever. And just like the Wii U, was not the platform to buy. And just like the Wii was not the platform to buy if you want to play a lot of these third-party games. Or if you care about, you know, graphical fidelity or whatever, like those aspects of game development, like, yeah, those are not the platform for you. That's not what Nintendo is chasing. What they're chasing works well for them and works well for their style of game. And I can't knock it. You can't sit there and go like, oh, they should stop. I can't believe these fuckos. Like, no, like they're making money hand over fist. You know, the Switch is doing fucking fine. Would I like to see those games running on more powerful hardware? Sure. Yeah. Would I like to see Nintendo put out a device that was playing a game like Tears of the Kingdom at a much higher resolution and frame rate? Sure. Yes. It doesn't run great. That not running great is not going to it's not going to sell. It is already sold. You know? And so we can sit here and kind of like go all day long about how we wish that Nintendo's games were running at 4K and we're running at this and we're running at, you know, like that they were putting them out on a different platform. Boy, it'd be nice if I didn't have to buy a Switch. I would love to not have to fucking own a Switch. I would love to just play those games on a fucking PlayStation, you know, like all of that sort of stuff. Yes. But Nintendo is not that. They have pretty much never been that. The GameCube was them at their most accommodating. And Nintendo's platforms make a fine secondary console, right? Like it's I think it's perfectly understandable, especially at the price points. If they're going for these lower prices, you eventually get to a point where you can justify like, yeah, I guess I really do want to play this Metroid game and this other Metroid game, and I want to play this Zelda game, and I want to play Mario Odyssey, and yeah, I should have a Switch because I want to play those games. There's enough of them now to justify the purchase. On top of owning a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox. You don't need to own both, a PlayStation and an Xbox. Generally speaking, I own both. I would always, you know, and that's I would do that even if I wasn't in this line of work. I would want to own all the platforms because I'm a sick fucking. I'm sick. But you know, what else we got here? My daughter, I moved my daughter over to Mario Kart 8 from Mario Kart 7. And I gave her, she has my wife's Switch Lite, and she's using that to play it. And it's not working out as well as I thought it would. Because one of the main reasons I moved is because the Switch, because Mario Kart 8 has some kind of auto driving options in it. It has auto accelerate and auto steer. And I turned those on for her because she would get turned around. She would be racing wrong way on the track, and so I'd be like, oh well, here, check this out, and and she's finishing races and everything else, but she knows it's playing by itself. She knows that she's not doing it, and so she fucking hates it. She's like, she set it down to take a bite of like a string cheese or something, and it kept driving, and she was like, fuck this. She actually asked me to play Mario Kart 7 instead. She's like, let's play Mario Kart 7 instead. But then she looked at the character select screen on that and saw how fewer characters there were and was like, no, let's play 8. And then she just spent 20 minutes staring at the character select screen, picking people and going, who's that? Who's that? Who's this? And I had to explain to her what Inkling Girl meant. The other thing about both Mario Kart 7 and 8, and maybe there's a way to do this in 8 with the versus mode, but you can't just pick a track and race on a track. You have to pick a cup and race the cup of 4 tracks. So if I want to show her Rainbow Road, which she loves when she sees it, it's the 3rd or 4th race on some of these cups. And so on 7, you have no options at all. You are just fucked. You can go to time trial and race any track you like, but then you have to race alone. And she does not want to race alone. I tried that. She's like, where's everybody else? There's no one else here with me. I'm all alone. I'm like, okay. So time trial doesn't work. There's a custom cup option in Mario Kart 8 that I need to dig into those options more and make sure you can pick like individual tracks. But even in those cases, you cannot pick a single track. You have to pick 4. You can also pick 48 if you fucking want to. But I don't know if you can pick individual tracks for that, because it looked like it was just like, do you want to race them first to last, or how do you want, like I didn't see an option in there at first glance for how to pick tracks, but I need to dig in there with the custom cup options and see if there's something in there. It sucks. It sucks that there's no just like, do a single race. Let's do a 50cc single fucking race on this track. Fuck you. With AI. I cannot believe that that's not there. Like, just put me in a race on this. Yeah, no, this one. It's mind-blowing to me that it's not there. That was half the reason I thought, well, surely Mario Kart 7 is some kind of outlier. And clearly by the time they got to make Mario Kart 8 and then put it out again on the Switch, and I mean, they're still putting out tracks for it. There's so many tracks. Clearly, they must have an option in there to let you just race on a track. No. Fucking no. Mario Kart fucking sucks. I've spent a lot of time playing it lately as well, with or for my daughter. She's like, you do this one, because she wants to race the 3rd track, and so I'm racing the first 2. I'm like, damn it. This game fucking sucks. God damn. The first Mario Kart was pretty good. Everything after that, trash. Mario Kart 64 is like, It's like if you took a birthday cake and then stepped on it and set it on fire. You're like, here you go. Mario Kart 64 is a piece of shit. Oh my God. What a terrible game. And they didn't get better. Like, Double Dash at least was a neat idea. I remember, man, we got so much shit when that fucking Mario Kart 64 review ran back in the day. But no one, we had the reviewer of the game was the younger brother of one of the founders of the site. And he was working in the engineering group or something. But he was the biggest Mario Kart fan in the world that I knew of at the time. And every day he'd be like, did we get Mario Kart yet? Because we were importing a copy of it. And he was like, is it out? Is it showing up yet? When is that going to? It's like, no, John, it's not. It's like 2 weeks away. He's like, okay. The day that thing showed up, all work stopped. He came down. We set it up. We started playing. It was split screen. We had enough controllers, and it came with the controller, the two-tone gray and black controller and all that shit. And we set it all up. And he's like, yeah, finally. We got like 3 races or battle modes and races, and we kind of went through a few things in that. And he was just like crestfallen. He was just like, damn, y'all. He's from Texas. Like, this is, we ended up having him review the game. We ended up making him play more of it after that. He was so fucking, and you know, I was kind of like, yeah, I don't think this game's any good either. But he was just like so fucking bummed. He had waited so long for that thing, years, for there to finally be another Mario Kart, and here it was. And man, well, yeah, we reviewed that game, and we were just like, man, you know, it was like got a 6 or something, and it was just like, we got to tell you guys hate Nintendo. It was just like this funny thing of just like, I mean, the person that we got to review this game is like the realest fucking Mario Kart fan I think that I've ever known. So the idea like, oh, you hate Nintendo, like, they did it to themselves. Okay, this is not an email for the podcast. This is just spam. I got something that says, Chelsea Handler joins Tyler Henry on fire. I'm like, what the fuck is it? I was like, oh, this is some fucking Web3 ass fucking spam. Thanks. Let's see here if there's maybe one more email we can look at here. Someone with no name writes in and says, I heard you recently doing ad reads and was curious if you had any tips for that kind of work. My buddy told me at one time you were doing ad reads for radio. No, I don't know. I just listen to a lot of ads and talk like that. That was all the advice I used to give, which doesn't make nearly as much sense now as maybe it used to. But when we were trying to get people to be better on camera, more comfortable on camera and talking at the cadence of being on camera, the thing I would tell people to do, is to watch a lot of MTV and see how the MTV VJs do it. Because it's this presentational voice. It's not just like fucking I'm talking to you. It's like a little more like, and then we're going to do this. And then, you know, like it's a little bit up. It's a little bit on. But it is not newscaster. And then we did this. It is not newscaster. It is like that middle ground of like, you are presenting something to camera. And so you are trying to be, you know, clear, concise, whatever it is, you know, enunciating, you know, talking slower than you normally would. But not stiff. And that was the hard part. So that was why it was MTV VJs. and not like go watch the news or go watch a game show host or whatever else, because that was the vibe they were, especially this was, well, I don't know, what was this? This would be the late 90s, early 2000s or something like that. That I was trying to, and that's still stiff. Like that's still not 100% natural what you're doing there. But for the type of like, the way you kind of wanted a video review to come off, that was sort of the right cadence, the right style of delivery, but also the right level of like, you are using words like an actual speaking human would. You are not writing a news presentation. You're not writing a presentation. You're writing a script that is meant to be read in a human fashion, but like I said, a little bit elevated and significantly slower than a human would talk in a regular conversation. Slowing it down is actually one of the hardest parts, because you always think you've slowed it down. This was something when I was doing radio, and we talked about Steven, the guy that would produce me for radio. His number one thing that he would say is like, okay, do it again, but now do it way slower. And you just getting into the rhythm of talking as slowly as possible so that you're speaking for radio, so that people can absorb what you're saying as they're paying attention to something else. That ends up being, that sort of ends up being but like you joke, but like the WNBC, like that type of enunciation and figuring out where you enunciate and where you don't and why, that stuff does matter to a certain extent when you're trying to present, if you're doing a personality, that's all stuff I don't do now, right? Like the ads sound like that. But like me talking to you right here is way too fast, way too many ums and uhs and all that sort of stuff. Like, like the sort of stuff that if you were working off a script, you would script out of it completely, and slow it way down. So podcasts have kind of broken it. Steel Knight says, say double do instead of W. We got that advice. I did a radio show. It was the official PlayStation radio show. We were producing this, and so Sony would provide some interview content for the show or something, and then we were talking about games, and they had a weird. They had a weird. It was a weird situation because it was an official show, so Sony kind of got final say on it, and we were coming in to do the show, but we were working with a guy who was an actual radio dude. His name was, I believe it was David Lawrence. He's the guy who produced the radio segments for, I believe, Saints Row 1. And I believe he was the voice of some of the talk radio in Saints Row 1 and maybe 2. And so he was on a Zephyr line somewhere else. We never were in the same room as him. We were somewhere in San Francisco. He was wherever he was. And so we would do this radio show, and we would have to say, visit www.gamespot.com, because you had to say that shit then. You had to say he had the advice of like, well, when you're saying W on the radio, you're not really saying W. You kind of want it to almost come out as a double D. But you're saying it fast enough, www, to kind of crank. And I never got the hang of saying W. www. I can't do it. I never could do it. But that was his advice. I think it was David Lawrence. I believe Lawrence was his last name. But anyway, we'll have to go look at the Saints Row credits, because I'm pretty sure he did radio for Saints Row 1. Like the same way Laszlo did radio for GTA, David Lawrence was like the Laszlo of Saints Row, if that makes sense. And yeah, I never got good at that. But I imagine that's something that like people in the wrestling business, when they have to say WWE, they probably have to. Maybe they're saying WWE. I don't know. Yeah, I could never say it in a way that sounded natural. but he would do it. And like, if you're really, really, really paying attention, you knew he was saying W, but it never came across that way in passive listening. It always just sounded like W. I don't know. It's weird. Voices are weird. Language sounds, mouth sounds are strange. Mouth sounds are very strange. Let's see here. All right, last question. Matthew writes in, says, would you be into the idea of Meet Your Maker letting the builder play recordings of their voice and sound effects to the player as they go through your base? Yeah. I mean, anything that, yes, anything that allowed those, and that would be horribly abused, and that would be a nightmare, and like, you know, that would never work in today's world, but yes, that'd be great if you could provide your own audio. If you could have it so it just plays Dr. Dre and Ice Cube Natural Born Killers the entire time you're in the base, so that you're just making New Jack City over and over again. That's what I would do. But no, yes, I think anything that allows you to do more things with your base and customize them more and have more kind of unique moments to them, I think would be an improvement. That game has been getting more and more updates. They've added more trap mods, and they've done a lot of different stuff. And I just don't know if that game is catching on or not. You know, it's I don't know if it was free on PlayStation Plus for launch month, and I think that there's cool. I still think that's a cool game. I have it installed, and it's I think it's fun, but it doesn't seem like it attracted a lasting player base. So I wonder about the long-term future of that game, like how well it will do or how long it will last, or you know, whatever metric. I think the stuff they did with numbers and leveling and unlocks and all of that was far too confusing at launch, and just a lot of the meters moved very slowly in a way that made it feel like you were not playing right or something. You were just not progressing the way you felt like you should be. And I know they've tried to correct that sort of stuff, but Meet Your Maker, yeah, I wonder how Meet Your Maker will survive. Like, will it survive? How long will it survive? Whatever you want to say about it. Like, I think it's a really great idea. It is one of my favorite things that I've played this year, I think, but also I have 1,000% fallen off of it. Like, I keep forgetting about it, you know, because it runs great on Steam Deck, but also I hate playing that game with a controller. That's probably the number one thing I would say about it. Is it's cool that it's cross-play and it runs on console and all this other stuff, but I can only play that game with a mouse and keyboard. And every time I do try to play it with a controller, I'm like, this is way less fun. This feels like I am way less dynamic and able to adjust to these traps. And I think the stuff they allowed people to create without having some kind of verification step in there, or just some kind of process that, I don't know, the bases aren't dynamic enough, because it has to be a straight line A to B and the little walker has to get there. It eliminates jumping puzzle. It eliminates like just a lot of tech and a lot of things you would probably try to do if you could have something a little more elaborate, I guess. I mean, there's a ton of creativity and, you know, there's a ton of options at your disposal, but it just feels like that's a limitation that when you're playing the game and raiding other people's bases, it's a limitation, because you know, as the person going in, you're like, well, okay, this looks confusing, but I know there has to be a straight line from A to B with no weird jumps. No, I see these weird jumps over here. I know that doesn't matter, really, because I know if I follow this little guy, he'll walk his way in there and I'll figure, you know, like there's just, yeah, it's disappointing that people didn't take, because I do think it deserved better than it got. I do think the game has issues and still has issues last time I played it, around progression and whatever else. But it just seems like on top of that, it just did not attract a lasting fan base. And you could probably chalk that up partially to the progression being kind of crummy. I think that the motif of the base and the weird alien and, I got to level up. I got to give the alien some juice so that he levels up. And I think all of that stuff is fucking corny and just like gets in the way. It's just like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, yeah, whatever. I just let me get back out there and do the thing. This is all, none of this story stuff hits at all. I think it's a pointless waste. They probably need to have something in there, some kind of justification. But that stuff's no good. And the game just needs more. Yeah, it just the game just needs more. I think that there's a path for them to probably continue to add stuff to that game and whatever else. But I wonder if if at this point it'll be too little, too late. If they already kind of missed their window, I don't know. It's hard, I have it installed. I would probably play more of it, but now if I've got time to game, I'm going to be playing fucking Street Fighter. I'm going to be playing Diablo. I'll probably get back into Tears of the Kingdom at some point, maybe. And whatever else, there's just like other stuff out now that I'd rather be playing. So yeah. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes for that whole thing. I don't know. I'm still pulling for it because I do think it's cool. Will I ever set up some Street Fighter lobbies or anything like that? Yeah, sure. Yeah, we should probably play some more Street Fighter. That'd be fun. The custom lobby stuff was not working on launch day. It was broken. But it seems like it is up and working right now. There is a club. It's full. So we probably need to create a second club because clubs can only hold 100 people. Maybe I can create a second club and we can, because you can be in like 3 different clubs. But yeah, eventually they'll do private hubs and whatever else too. So, maybe we can do that too. But yeah, I want to put in some more time on that game. So, I don't know. Yeah, maybe we'll play some more tomorrow, but there's some other stuff that's probably worth looking at as well. We'll see. We will see. Maybe some Street Fighter is on the agenda for tomorrow before everything gets crazy. So the schedule is going to be wild. Tomorrow, I'll be streaming normal time, be here at 10 a.m. Thursday, I'll be talking over Jeff Keighley's stuff. I believe that starts at noon. So I'll probably be going live a little bit before that. And we'll see a bunch of fucking Mortal Kombat, I guess, on that, huh? And whatever else they've got, Alan Wake and some other stuff. And then I'll be out there seeing games, and I'll be reporting on that as I can and posting podcasts, interviews or whatever as I can from that. And then, no Friday stream because I will be out seeing video games in person, but then I will be streaming on Sunday to talk about the Microsoft stuff and the Ubisoft stuff on, I guess, Monday. Yeah. Well, yes, there will be some video games streaming happening around these parts for the next week or so. So strap your asses to your asses because it's about to get assed up in here. Is that how we sell that? Come on back and go ass to ass with the future of video games. No? All right. Well, that'll have to do, I guess. That's going to do it for the show this week. Thanks everybody for hanging out again. Patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. That new episode of Game Boys to Men just went up. We're talking about Star Fox 2 and Comanche for the SNES and all sorts of, the early 95 video game trade shows right before E3 came in and took over. The last CES where video games had a relevant presence. That's what we're talking about this time around. And how Glenn and I were in wildly different situations, and he was hanging out with Sony Pictures executives and taking meetings with them while I was working a booth and hating it. But at least I got paid. That'll be it. See you tomorrow or see you next week for the podcast, or, hey, somewhere in between. A lot of streams between here and there. So come through, hang out. Thanks everybody for watching, for all this stuff for the last year of all this crazy stuff. So yeah, thanks everybody. Tell your friends that I don't know, spread the word. Spread the word that motherfucker's in town and he's talking about video games. I don't know. Have a good one, everybody. I'll see you soon.